you just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Tuesday. That would be Taco Tuesday for all you ruffians out there. Taco Tuesday. Hit it, man.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
Yes, it is. Speedy Gonzalez says so. Taco Tuesday. And pushing buttons on the board. And I'm back in the real studio. JP, hey, man. How are you?
Well, you're no longer a 20 tech gamer, I guess, today, but
not.
You were for one day, I guess.
I was in Birdman's secret lair yesterday.
Yeah, the bird nest.
That's right, the bird nest, the secret lair of the Birdman. But yeah, that was. I was glad to be in Madison yesterday. I did the show remotely from Birdman's podcast studio, and went from there to the town hall that was sponsored by Moms for Liberty and the New Federalist Alliance. And that was very cool. Introduced Jared Hudson to the crowd, one of our podcasters here who's running for U.S. Senate, former Navy SEAL. It was a very cool night. And a lot of ruffians turned out. All y'all that I got to see last night. I mean, I could call names, but I'd leave somebody out. But there was a ton of listeners, some of whom even text the show regularly, who were there last night, and I really appreciated it. Good stuff. All right, we got a great show laid on for you. Again, I had content that I just wanted to unfold. I just want to spend time on it and develop it and draw it out. So no guests today, although we will take your calls and texts as just a standard rule, man. It's just bring it on. We want your input as much as anything. But in the meantime, it's Taco Tuesday, and I have a triple dipper. Play it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, safe streets. Let's talk about safe streets. President Trump has what he calls his Make America Safe Again agenda. There are blue cities around this nation right now that don't seem to be measuring up to the task. Safe streets. Isn't that something we should expect? Because I will just tell you that one of the essential services of government, is public safety. It is. And I look at some of what happens in some of our blue cities and I think, good Lord, that's not supposed to happen. Now, I won't say crime only happens in blue areas. It's not. Safe streets is an important piece no matter where you live. So we're going to talk about it in general, safe streets. Phil Williams going to handle that one for you. All right, number 2 on the Triple Dipper, Trump world. Yeah, Trump world. Trump is like, he's like everywhere. Man's playing golf in Scotland, signing major deals with the EU, got a trade deal with Japan. Oh, by the way, did you hear about him stopping the war between Thailand and Cambodia? And I'm like, what? Good Lord. It's Trump world, and we're going to take a walk in it. So Trump world, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, protecting kids. I got to tell you, I say it all the time, but I mean it every time. There is no greater resource, no greater asset, no greater gift to us than children. And we are called to be good stewards of that which God has given us. And part of what he's given us is children. And protecting kids is a primary agenda item for me personally, for this show, and thankfully for this president. So we're going to talk about protecting kids. Big picture look at it. That's coming up number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into the Rightside Way opening monologue, and I'll just remind you guys that every single day, the Rightside Way sponsored for you by Stan McDonald. Just talked to Stan a little while ago, as a matter of fact. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And yeah, Stan McDonald is your daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. Okay, so I mentioned a moment ago that last night I had the honor of attending the Take Back Alabama Town Hall hosted by Moms for Liberty at Movement Church in Madison. Great time. Had a great group of folks there. Thank you to Pastors Seth and Lori of Movement Church for the willingness to host the event. Thank you to Emily Jones of Moms for Liberty, who spoke on building families, followed by Mark McAthron, who championed the concepts of federalism. And then I also spoke, and then I hosted a town hall event session with Jared Hudson, the former Navy SEAL, who's now running for U.S. Senate. So as Jared and I were sitting together waiting to go up on stage, though, I heard a text come in on my phone. And I looked down to see that the lovely Charlene had just sent word about an active shooter incident in downtown Manhattan. So by now, you've likely all heard the news that a depraved individual drove to the heart of New York City, walked calmly into a downtown high-rise with a AR rifle, killed 5 people, and then took his own life. And nobody really knows why. There is some speculation, but it's still being kind of unfolded. It struck me later, though, that I was sitting there when I got word of this with Jared Hudson, who's a good guy, who teaches other good guys how to handle firearms, how to conduct close quarters battle drills through his business, the Shooting Institute. So I've got this Navy SEAL sitting next to me who teaches at the Shooting Institute, and then somewhere else there was a bad guy who took up arms and committed heinous acts of terror. One is a decorated Navy SEAL who has handled the same type firearm that was used in the crime last night more times than he could likely count, trained as a sniper even, a firearms instructor who trains law enforcement and military personnel. The other was a bad guy using the exact same type firearm in order to perpetrate mayhem and destruction. My point is, it was the user of the weapon, not the weapon itself. But the calls are already out there to blame guns, just the guns, blame the inanimate object. The dust is still settling in Manhattan. The news is still raw, but at the risk of sort of being too soon on the topic, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. I know it's raw right now, but I want to talk about the fact that it's not the guns that are scary. It's the people that are scary. Let's not forget the heroism of a man named Derek Perry, a former Marine who just last week in Michigan pulled out his concealed carry firearm and saved innocent bystanders from being attacked by a knife-wielding madman who had just stabbed multiple other people at random. That was a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy. And the press isn't talking about that much, are they? Not so long ago, the liberal governor of New Mexico, who most of us had never even heard of, took the extreme step of deciding on her own to issue an executive proclamation of emergency. A healthcare emergency, she said. A healthcare related to, wait for it, gun violence. A healthcare emergency on gun violence. Well, that's novel. Can we also declare a healthcare emergency related to sitting around and watching too much TV? Can we declare a healthcare emergency because too many Twinkies have been eaten? Or because the sun is shining too brightly? Or because too many people are offended by those who don't want to use their imaginary pronouns? I mean, where exactly does it stop then with so-called healthcare emergencies? But as many of you already know, this was not really about healthcare, was it? Nope. It was about gun control. It was about making sure the citizens of her state knew that she was the boss and that in her own words, none of their civil liberties are absolute. Really? To include the Second Amendment right to bear arms. But you see, it still matters if someone is acting in self-defense, and it still matters that when leadership abdicates its authority and allows anarchy to reign at the risk of life, limb, and property, that good people will get hurt. And it's good guys with guns who stop bad guys with guns all the time, but they don't want to talk about that. Well, by now you may have figured out that I'm a gun guy. I mean, it's hard to come from the background and training that I've had and not be. But it's not just my military training or the fondness for things that go bang. It's also the fact that I'm a firm believer in the originalist, sometimes called strict constructionist, view of the U.S. Constitution, which includes, by the way, that good old Second Amendment as number 2 on the Bill of Rights. So I've watched the New Mexico governor with a wary eye, and sure enough, the gun control advocates began latching onto it. It's the usual rhetoric. Guns are evil. They're assault weapons, weapons of mass destruction. Well, I got news. People went to war with knives and swords and spears and arrows for centuries. Where are the calls to ban those implements of destruction? So let's be clear where I'm going here. Firearms are not scary. It's people that are scary, period. If firearms make you uncomfortable, I understand that. If you're averse to the loud noises caused by the report of a round exiting the barrel of any firearm, that is certainly understandable. But in my estimation, aside from noise and a general lack of familiarity, most people are more concerned about the manner in which a firearm is used, maintained, or handled. And those, my friends, are issues of a purely human fault, not the fault of the firearm itself. Look, I've spent hours and hours on many ranges, both civilian and military. And in both cases, I have never minded the strict observance of basic gun safety procedures, like the use of eye and ear protection, the respect of others while they're on the firing line. I've also, oh, by the way, been the victim of those that have a lesser degree of care and concern. I can show you right now the surgical scars on my left leg that resulted from somebody being lax with firearm safety, sweeping a loaded shotgun back off the range just feet from me and shooting me. After surgery and months of rehab, I was back to full strength. I went back to the range too, at the next available opportunity. Despite getting shot by one of those evil firearms, I was actually able to separate the causation from the instrument. It was not the shotgun that shot me in and of itself. It was the knuckleheaded laxity of the guy who shot me who should have known better. So are guns scary? Not in and of themselves. People are scary. But gun control activists, to them, it's all about the weapon itself. They don't give two hoots about the people. They're fixated on the inanimate object that cannot load itself, aim itself, or even fire itself. Me personally, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not a big hunter myself, never have been, no real reason. I just didn't grow up in a hunting family, but I am more of a sport shooter. I enjoy sunny days on the range, firing at both known distance and unknown distance targets. I love shooting sporting clays and watching that orange disc just evaporate in the air when you lead it just right. I enjoy the opportunity to spend time on a short range practicing magazine changes and dual weapons drills, going from long gun to sidearm and back again. I love the sound of ding on a metal target when you shoot it. And I'm no expert on every grain or quality of round, not at all. I have friends who are every bit the expert that I'm not. But I'm competent and I'm law-abiding, and I do enjoy shooting sports. And do I own firearms? Certainly. All kinds. Some for use and some just for sentimentality, like the old Winchester 30-30 lever action that belonged to my grandfather. I've got breech load, bolt action, magazine fed, and pump. I've got holographic sights, iron sights, and no sights. Holstered, unholstered, and slung, long guns, sidearms, and scatter shots. And what I just described, by the way, is no different than the majority of gun owners in this nation. The vast majority of folks who own a firearm are good, solid, law-abiding dudes and dudettes who have one or more firearms for sport, hunting, or just personal defense. And contrary to the rhetoric of the gun-scary crowd, not one of those firearms ever leaped out of someone's care, loaded itself, and committed a violent act. Look, I could go on, but in short, guns are not scary. It's people that are scary. And good people with guns are what often stands between potential victims and bad people with guns. And do not forget, the Second Amendment to the Constitution guarantees that your right to bear arms shall not be infringed. They didn't write that it may not be infringed. They said shall not be infringed. And they didn't write it to say, but not for magazine-fed weapons. No, they just knowingly and with forethought said shall not be infringed and left it at that. In my view, the First and Second Amendments were the first and second for a reason. Those two amendments, establishing our freedoms of speech and assembly and religion and the right to bear arms, are what protects us from losing all the other amendments. And I would dare say the Second Amendment is actually what protects the first. It's guns. I'm telling you, they're not that scary. It's people that are scary. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, I realize I'm saying all that in the wake of another mass shooting. At the same time, I felt like it was necessary to go ahead and arm you for the discussions that are likely to be had over the next few days. Or at the very least, when you hear something on the news and you want to yell at the TV, you'll know what to yell. But there it is. Second Amendment, live free or die. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Baghdad in 2004. It was my second deployment. It's hard to believe. I've already been home now for 21 years from my second deployment in the global war on terror. That tells you how old I am. My daughter, Caitlin, and my son-in-law are up there running sound for the live stream, but Caitlin can speak to what it was like for me being gone, just like boom, boom, back to back. Started off the war in Afghanistan, initially riding horses on a small team in the middle of nowhere, and then came home, and I wasn't even home a year, and I immediately deployed again and spent all of 2004 in Baghdad. And aside from combat operations and all the things we had going on, part of my job was to help this new thing called democracy get started. And y'all, it was amazing to be in a place where people had no idea what self-determination was. I thought I appreciated my vote before I went over there. My dad had run for office at one point when I was younger. I had always voted. I'd never missed a vote. I liked democracy. I was always a Republican. And then I went to a situation where no one had any idea what self-determination was. Not a lick. I'm talking about Saddam Hussein when he took power. He took power. You were not allowed to own a car if the Ba'ath Party hadn't decided you were okay to own a car. That's why there were so few gas stations in Baghdad, which is crazy. A city of 5 million people. It dawned on me one day, there's no gas stations anywhere when no one had a car, unless you were approved. Schools were approved and you could go if you could. There were so many things in life, the minutia of life was so controlled, and yet they had no say in who controlled it, not a lick. We may think once in a while that we get frustrated with our politics. I'll be honest with you, we still got it better than huge swaths of the world. I tell people as an attorney, I tell people when I'm talking to them and they're a new jury, I'll tell them, I said, you don't understand the value of your position as a juror. You are the arbiter of the facts. People around this world have no respect for the rule of law, but we sit in a room where we have the right to a trial by jury of our peers. And that's you. And I tell the jury that. I will say the same thing to you as voters. What we do in our country is largely determined on what you guys determine as voters. And I don't care whether it's dog catcher or president of the free world. The reality is that vote matters. So I had this experience in 2004. Aside from combat ops and all the things that were going on, the craziness, part of my job wound up having me interact with what was called the DAC, the District Advisory Council, which in essence was the very first ever city council in Baghdad in anyone's memory. These were people elected by their various districts and neighborhoods to represent them and to give them some measure of a voice. And I went to a meeting once, and I got to tell you, this was no small thing. These guys were serving. And while I was there, I got pretty tight with several of them. One of them was a man by the name of Sheikh Majid. The other was a Dr. Abdul Qadim. And they were actually the chair and vice chair of this DAC that I worked with. Sheikh Majid was assassinated. And Dr. Qadim barely survived an assassination attempt, but he was never the same. He was not able to return to the council. But at one point, I was at a meeting where they were both still active, and we're sitting there, and I still carry a picture around with me a lot. And that picture shows this group of men sitting at a table. It's kind of an innocuous little picture. It doesn't look like much. It's just a guy sitting at a table. But I took that picture right after something happened. We're sitting there, and somebody on the council and my interpreter's on the side kind of whispering to me what it is they're saying. And I'm sitting in the back of the room as an advisor. And my interpreter says, sir, they've just mentioned that apparently so-and-so on the council has resigned his position because his family was threatened. They have a vacancy on the council. So they talked among themselves for a minute. And then somebody said, I believe that we're allowed to nominate a replacement. Well, the whole room got like, I mean, it looked heavy. And Dr. Qadim, as chair of the council, looked in the back, and myself and my battalion commander were sitting there, Lieutenant Colonel Sexton, and he says, Colonel Sexton, what do you think? And I'll never forget this. My boss, Colonel Sexton, goes, it's your council. Well, then we will take nominations, says Dr. Qadim. And some names came out, and then somebody else says, I believe we're supposed to vote. It was an alien moment for them, y'all. It was. And so I'm sitting there watching, and I'm thinking, and my first thought was, what are they? Oh, they used to be killed for this kind of stuff. They just had a guy who quit because his family was being threatened. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. By the way, I really did enjoy seeing a whole bunch of y'all last night. People coming out to that town hall event in Madison. It was very cool. I always love putting, faces with names. And so many of these were names on our text lines. They'd walk up and say, hey, I'm so-and-so from wherever, and it was like, and I'd go, oh, man. Enjoyed seeing a number of y'all there last night. Thank you very much. By the way, I did notice that during the break, you were playing the clip because during the break on the live stream, rather than running commercial ads, which is still running right now for some reason,
you're delayed over there.
I think I must be very delayed. Oh, it just came back. But I see that you're playing the clip of me speaking last night. So
yeah, and then next I got queued up you and Jared
No, cool. Okay.
town hall so they can watch it if anybody didn't get to see it or get to go to it.
Great. Yeah, it was a good night. Very good night. Thank you, Emily Jones, for being the one who put that together. Thank you, Movement Church, by the way, which literally the pastor said last night, and it did not feel at all offensive. It was not like anything put on. He said, he just feels like he's a church he's called to speak into culture, and the gospel is certainly his mission. But Movement Church is also not scared to address politics. And I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I watched that live and thought we need more pastors like that, because it's not like we need to. I mean, that's a complete different rabbit hole. But Christians don't necessarily have to force their congregation to believe something, but to be like scared of politics and not touch it with a 10-foot pole. So that's not what we're called to do either. So.
And by the way, it doesn't mean you're running people off.
Yeah,
it doesn't. But and it doesn't also mean that they have to endorse a candidate, because last night was not an endorsement of Jared Hudson. It was an endorsement of things. It was an endorsement of principles,
ideas.
Yeah. It was like when you go vote, these are the kind of things that need to be on your agenda when you're looking for a candidate. And I thought that was just huge. So let me tell you about attorney Stan McDonald, which I was about to get to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just making sure. Just making sure.
That's what you're there for. Thank you. But no, attorney Stan McDonald, he is the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue. Stan McDonald told me today he got 2 phone calls back to back from people who are calling him because they hear him sponsoring on the show every day. But yeah, Stan McDonald, friend of mine, great guy, longtime conservative, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. Listen, Stan's not only just a good lawyer, he's also the kind of guy who's been in the trenches, in the mix, in the fray for years on the conservative policies and politics that right-side ruffians care about. So there's that. But then also, Stan McDonald, as an attorney, has represented his clients in like literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in any local, state, or federal court. And I always like to say, and I do, that if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So I'm going to tell you how to reach him, which apparently some of y'all do on a regular basis. But Stan McDonald, the phone number to reach this guy is 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, an America First family man, 256-479-3020. And tell him I heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that very much. And I don't have to do the disclaimer anymore. Apparently, I am told.
I feel naked almost.
I do. Yeah. I feel like I am walking around with like no pants on. I have pants on, by the way. I do.
I can confirm.
Yeah. Thank you. It would be rather awkward if I didn't. But yeah, Stan McDonald, great guy. And thank you to those who already reached out to him multiple times. All right, that's it. The music's playing, but the text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And now they're talking about voting again to put somebody else in the position of being threatened. And I'll never forget this. They called for the vote, and Dr. Khatami called for the vote. And by a show of hands, and my interpreter's telling me what he's saying, and the hands began to go up, and I swear it's almost like the hands were going up while they sat lower in their seats. And he counted the vote, and he goes, well, then so-and-so shall join the council. And all of a sudden, every one of the men on that council, like 12 of them, they started laughing and clapping. It was this sense of relief. It was this sense of we just did something, and they were really excited. And I'm sitting there thinking, that looked like something you and I would do every other day of the week. I mean, how many times have we been to a meeting? Who wants to do so-and-so? I do. Who's again? I ain't doing that. We do that thing on a regular basis. They had no basis of reality, though, to compare to. In fact, for them, it was potentially under threat of death. And a month later, Sheikh Majid was dead. We have no idea what it means to have this right of self-determination and self-governance and the ability to vote for a candidate. I say all that to say that while it's also unique in Western society for us to have that, it is also absolutely 100% something we should never take for granted. That's why it's so important that we should choose our candidates and choose them wisely. I would say choose them prayerfully. I would also say choose them judiciously. Don't just allow anybody else to walk in and be a candidate. At the same time, everybody should have the opportunity to want to be a candidate. Does that make sense? Everybody should have the right to run for office, Every one of you should have a right to say whether they should or not. And we should all be a part of that process, because there are people in this world who still die because they just want self-determination. I watched it firsthand. At the end of my tour, I came home in late 04, and it was a rough year. Lost several great guys in my unit, and I came home appreciative more of what it meant to be home. But close to the end of my tour, I went back to meet with the DAC, the district council again. And I gave them my goodbyes. And I still have on my shelf just like a handwritten certificate that was in kind of cryptic English because they was not their first language. And it said, like, owing to the gratitude that we have for you these days, you know, that kind of thing. And it's signed by Dr. Cottom. But as we finished our meeting, I told them, I said, there will be a day when your children will look in their history books at school and your names will be in it and you will be called heroes. Because you stood up. Because you said, we'll do that thing that people will kill us for because it's really, really important. We're not under threat of death here. I mean, Trump took a round of the ear, but that's rare, right? Generally speaking, we expect to have people run for office. And we expect to be allowed to run if we want to, if we qualify. And we expect, all by the way, for people to vote. And we expect not to have our vote curtailed. We expect our vote to be counted. That's the beauty of where we live. It absolutely is. And I hate the fact that it took me going to war to gain that level of appreciation for it. But it did. And I'm forever grateful. And to this day, I still count Dr. Cottom as somebody who I would love to see again if he's still alive. I have no idea.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all are talking about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show every day, looking right inside the studio to see what color shirts we're wearing. I mean, you can see everything and hear us talking all at the same time. Live streaming the show in places like X and Rumble and YouTube and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, all you podcasters who catch it after the fact, listen. Everywhere y'all catch this show, it means something to us. It just does. We see the numbers. We know you're there. And then we get to meet you in person sometimes, like last night. We love you and we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Text lines are indeed open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Let me get a few of those real quick. Allie Mathens, I saw her last night. She said, good word, Colonel. It's so good to see you last night. Okay, there's the text. Thank you, Allie. Scott from Russellville says, Brother Phil, great monologue. I just had that same conversation with a friend who happens to live in Manhattan. Exact same story. Thank you, my friend. Well, Scott, thank you. And, it's just it's a crying shame this happened. And that does not take away
We can't let the left punish the world for the crimes of the one. Trina from Elkmont says the New York commissioner said last night that it was an M4 rifle. I heard that. I actually listened to that live when I was driving back from the town hall up in Madison. Said it was an M4 rifle. Well, that's another AR style platform rifle. So an M4 is a military version of the AR-15. That's all it is. And I don't know that it was an M4 because that's a military grade, and I doubt it. But it was going to be M4 style. And she may have said M4 because, as I think law enforcement often carries military grade firearms, so they may very well carry M4s, and that may have been a force of habit. But it was definitely an AR platform of some type. I saw it just a moment ago on the news, and it appears that he didn't purchase it himself; that some associate purchased it for him, which is going to be a problem. So watch for the next attack on this to be some new measure of background check, additional information, 4-day holding period, something. I don't know.
I saw somebody post and said that, wait, but the gun he used is illegal in New York City. There's no possible way he could have used that gun. It's like pointing to the fact of, oh yeah, those laws only take away guns from good folks who would stop those criminals.
Well, he actually drove from Nevada.
Yeah, exactly.
And your point exactly is criminals don't care.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh wait, you're telling me a criminal broke the law anyways? And the law-abiding citizens are now the ones that are in danger.
Absolutely. Jeff Mendiana says, Phil, the definition of arms is anything that projects force, defensively or offensively. Therefore, any arms restrictions on anything that means that criteria should not be restricted or infringed upon. I'm still waiting for someone to tell me why I can't carry a hand grenade, because under the Constitution, I should be able to. Well, Jeff, I'm not sure I can help you there. As your lawyer, I feel I must advise you. JT Lacey Springs says, my grandson's got BB guns before age 5. We talked, discussed the do's and don'ts repeatedly. Since then, they have fired multiple weapons without incident. They ask questions, I answer. Keeping curiosity at bay is a huge key. It is, and JT, way to go on that. By the way, I remember my grandfather was the first one to let me handle a firearm. It wasn't even loaded. It wasn't loaded. I knew it because I watched him clear the chamber and then hand it to me and tell me I could go over to the door, open the door, point it outside, and feel the click when I pulled the trigger after I had personally also checked to see that it was unloaded. I mean, basically what he taught me was every gun is loaded until it's not. You just consider every gun to be in that status. So yeah, good job, JT. Adam from Athens says, great monologue, Phil. There's not much better than some quality range time. It was good meeting you and talking with Birdman about gaming. Yeah, Adam, it was good to meet you too. We got to meet there, I guess, right in the last about 10 or 15 minutes before I left. So yeah, Adam, thank you so much for catching me before you left. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you, John. So also, did you hear that a lone gunman in Manhattan? Yes, I did. Okay, I apparently talked about it. He was apparently trying to target the NFL headquarters. And yes, that's a part of my next segment, but you're correct. We're learning that right now there's New York Post, I think, has a scoop on it saying that they did allegedly found a suicide note because he did take his own life. And that the note did say, what's it called again? The condition he had allegedly? The
CTE.
CTE stands for?
I actually don't know. I just know that it's
encephalopathy. And I can't think of all the words, but basically
it's chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy, I think it is. But it's like TBI. It's a brain damage that comes from sometimes contact sports with, things like, full contact football, which he was a football player. And then they found, like, I remember Jim McMahon used to play quarterback for the Bears. He apparently had CTE in a big way, and he was one of the ones trying to bring attention to it. I'm trying to think who died from it. Took their own life because of
Chargers player. I can't remember his name.
Wasn't Charlie Joyner, was it?
There's a Chargers lineman that was Hawaiian that took his own life from CTE.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name. It was Junior Seau.
Junior Seau.
Seau, yeah.
Oh gosh, he was a great player.
Junior Seau, yeah.
He was a linebacker.
Linebacker, yeah. So I mean, it's been well documented, the issues with CTE and we know so much more now. And the NFL has been trying to, from the top down. I mean, we wore Guardian caps, which is the the cushion on top of your helmet. We wore those in practice in high school growing. So becoming much more aware of it. But it still happens as combat sport or contact sports, combat sports too.
I played it was technically a club football team in college, and for a couple of seasons, like small seasons. But we had to buy our own equipment, so we bought old, beat up high school equipment and fixed it up. And I'm talking about these are the kinds that have the little foam pads inside.
Yeah,
and they were so old the foam pads had like hardened. And I remember literally one time we were doing tackle drills, and I tackled the guy literally like eyes in his chest, like my eyes were in his chest. I flattened him. It was one of the best tackles of my life, and everything in my vision went pixelated.
Yep,
and then pixelated in blue.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a second for the blue to go away, and I thought, my gosh, I think I may have a concussion.
Yeah, and I mean, thankfully, like they taught us, from Pee Wee up, keep your head out of the tackle, and so. I'm just trying to say, we're becoming more aware of it, as a whole, as football and such. But it unfortunately still happens, and I'm sure he did suffer from CTE, because I know one of the claims was he was mad that the NFL said that he suffered from CTE, but I think his actions clearly showed that he did suffer from CTE.
But CTE is not the excuse for going and shooting up the building and 5 people. Yes, drove from Nevada with an AR that was purchased by somebody else. He had prescription medications in the car, one report said, which seemed to indicate too that he had mental health issues aside from this. But he needed to point the finger at somebody. He needed a victim. He needed somebody to be responsible for his condition. And so he chose to go shoot up the pinnacle of the football industry, NFL headquarters. But he took the wrong elevator, apparently.
Yeah.
Because they have stovepiped elevators that only go to certain suites. And he took the wrong one, got off, and shot other people. Anyway, Dave from Capshaw. I met Dave last night. Dave, great to see you. Did you see his?
I did, yes.
He's got Batman and Robin with our faces superimposed over it. Oh, Lord. Thank you, Dave. David at Buc-ee's says, Phil, in regard to the disclaimer, on the legal disclaimer, he says, as the late, great President Reagan said, trust but verify. Indeed. TL from Huntsville, thanks, JP, for posting the replay of the town hall. I was going to text in and ask about it. I see it now on Twitter/X. I tried to look it up last night, couldn't find it. It was out there, but Danny from Madison, last one before I jump into the content. Oh, gosh, this is a long one. Okay, hang on a second. What have I got here? It says, Phil, I grew up in northern Idaho, running around the woods where shooting and hunting was a way of life. We had guns in our trucks at school because we'd go hunting after school. My dad was a former member of 5th Group. Oh, wow. 5th Special Forces. So I spent 15 of my 22 years in naval special warfare. Wow. Thank you, Danny. He said, as you can imagine, my boys are very proficient with all kinds of weapons. We shoot every weekend at my property on private range and train movements, transitions, reloads. Long-range precision rifle is everyday life in our household. You can always tell the left's only goal is control. You can tell because they never know anything about guns. Their facts are constantly wrong, showing they know nothing of the object they wish to ban. Their goal is just control. That jackwagon Andrew Yang, for example, just said automatic weapons are too easy to get in America. Obviously, he has no idea what he's talking about. Some may say semantics, but words have meanings. Ask the people of Ukraine if citizens should own firearms. Can anyone actually believe the founding fathers, who just got done fighting a bloody war against a tyrannical government, really wanted government control over their arms? Of course not. And then in all caps, shall not be infringed. Give the man some applause. Thank you very much. Naval Special Warfare, son of a special operator. Thank you very much. Danny, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the text. By the way, Danny, if you're still listening, let me know what you did in the NSW. Thomas from Athens says, Colonel, thank you for sharing your time, witness, and prayers for the Take Back Alabama Town Hall last night. Thomas, it was good to see you there last night. He said, it was great to see you and Emily and meet and talk to that amazing man, Jared Hudson. I'm very impressed. I've already donated to his campaign. How about that? At his website, hudsonforalabama.com. Thank you and God bless. Well, there you go. Outstanding. Thomas, thank you very much for that. All right, we're going to take a break right now and come right back. I'm going to jump right into Dipper number 1, safe streets. More of some of what we've been talking about and taking it a step further. Safe streets, make America safe again. I like the idea, don't you? We'll be right back.
Yeah, brother.
Hopefully my wife's listening to the live stream. You make me sound awesome.
Speaking of wife, I'm going to let you get personal with the crowd for a minute. They always hear the stump speeches. All right. You guys always hear the stump speeches. I'm going to run for office so that I can fix taxes or whatever else. You might want to know what this guy's like at home. So Tell them the story about how you told your future father-in-law you wanted to ask your wife to marry you.
Oh yeah, that's well, I was in sniper school at the time, and kind of my decision. I'd met my wife before, and we've been dating for a while, obviously. And I was like, you know what? If I pass sniper school, because sniper school attrition rate for the SEAL teams is about 60% at the time. That's what they're running. So you're already a SEAL, and they send you to NSW sniper school, and only about 40% of the guys that are already SEALs make it through our sniper school. So I was like, you know what? If I make it through sniper school, I could shoot pretty good and all that. But I mean, it ain't easy. You know, we're shooting 11-inch moving targets at 800 meters. You know, that's not skill, that's luck a lot of times. So I thought, if I can pass this, I'll ask Lauren to marry me. If I don't, I won't.
If I can pass this, I'll ask Lauren to marry me.
That's where it started at, because I could invite her dad up to the family shoot. And we were out there shooting sniper guns, and I asked her dad, I said, Greg, you know, I'm finishing sniper school. I'm going to invite Lauren out to San Diego, and I'm going to ask her to marry me if it's okay with you. And he looked at me as he's out there. I think we were fishing at the time, actually. I don't think we were actually shooting guns. But anyway, he looked at me and said, well, son, that's a question I reckon you better ask her. And he didn't care nothing about it. Want to get back to shooting guns.
Shooting guns and fishing.
Yeah, that's right.
Have my daughter. You're right. No, that's a great story. And you guys have, what, 3 daughters?
3 daughters, yeah. 3 daughters. 9, well, the 9-year-old will be 10 at the end of September. So 10, 7, and 3.
All right. So before I go any further, you did pass sniper school, which meant you were allowed to ask her to marry you.
That's right.
And she did. And it ain't easy being a team wife, but she's a SEAL team wife, and but she's also been there with you in every other decision you've made. So let me ask you in front of all of them, is this a joint decision between you and your wife to run for Senate?
Yeah, I mean, it. Like you said, every decision when you're married is a joint decision. If you're in this room and you're married, that is your most important physical relationship. Now, my wife, hopefully she's here. You hear that, babe? So, but it's not always. My wife would say I don't always act that way, right? And I'm sure you're sitting in this room and some of y'all would say, hey, we don't always act that way. But my most important thing is my wife, and making sure that we as one flesh, as God has outlined in Scripture, that we as one flesh make that decision. And if we're working against each other, if the flesh is fighting with each other, then you're never going to be able to be effective in any decision you make. So, yes, it is both of our decision is actually her that as we spent time praying about it, I couldn't get an answer from the Lord on what I should do. I mean, I spent a lot of time praying. I could not get an answer from the Lord. Hey, yeah, run for Senate, because it's the last thing. I can tell everybody in this room, it's the last thing that I want to do. I do not want to be a U.S. Senator. I don't want to go to Washington, D.C., but it is the service. It is truly the service that I desire. I do desire the service to this nation, to this state that it could be. My wife is of the same thought process. She doesn't want to share me with D.C. She said, I think you're going to win this. She said, that's the scary part, because I don't want to share you with Washington, D.C. I don't want the girls to have to share you with Washington, D.C., because they're not moving there. So my heart's going to be here. They're going to stay here at home. But she said, I think this is what we're supposed to do. And I said, well, we're going to have to go with that, because the only answer I was getting was ask your wife, do what she says. And that was it.
We did have a conversation back before he announced, and you told me that the advice you were given was ask your wife.
That's what I got from the Lord, and I even confirmed it with my granddaddy to tell you how I mean, and you know this, how I feel about politics. I was ashamed to tell my granddaddy that I was going to run for U.S. Senator, the one that lives up there by, Knockaloo Falls by you. I was ashamed to tell him that. I was like, he's not going to like this. He loved the SEAL thing, all that. He's not going to like this. And he said, well, son, it would be an honor to even say your grandson ran for it. No, you don't even have to win it, which was surprising to me. I wouldn't expect that. But he said, what are you asking me for? Ask your wife, do what she says. And when he said that, I said, okay, Lord, you've confirmed it for me, and that's what we decided to do.
Well, I heard several things in there about hearing from the Lord, about praying.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Let's see. Yeah, I tell you what, I got to do this real quick. I got to say a shout out to somebody. I'm going to say a shout out. Shout out to Greenbrier Barbecue, yonder way in Huntsville. Stan McDonald told me he was having lunch there today, and the owner of Greenbrier had some very complimentary things to say about this show. So if anybody's out there right now heading towards Greenbrier, please tell the guy who runs the place how much I appreciate his kind words. Thank you very much for that. It does get back to me. Yes, it does, because I have people everywhere. All right, so I'm jumping into safe streets. So President Trump, I'll tell you what, the man can coin a phrase. His "Make America Great Again," it's like MAGA has become its own word. You know it? It's no longer an acronym. MAGA is a word in and of itself. You don't have to say what MAGA stands for. Everybody knows what it stands for. And I mean, you can look at it like you can find other, famous acronyms along the way, like ASAP. If I say do something ASAP, everybody knows what it means as soon as possible. If, there's others that are less appropriate that I won't say right now, but the bottom line is that MAGA has become like its own word, but there are also now there's derivations. There's MAHA, which is Make America Healthy Again. There's what are some of the other ones I've seen? There's I think it's MASA, Make America Strong Again, for the military.
Yeah.
And then one of the ones I really appreciate is another MASA, which is Make America Safe Again. So Make America Safe Again is a part of the overall Trump agenda. You can actually look it up. I've got it pulled up right now on the screen. It comes from whitehouse.gov. President Trump's America First priorities, the very top of the list was what's known as the Make America Safe Again plan. The Make America Safe Again plan, it actually deals largely with things on the border. All right. So it launches right into taking bold action to secure the border and protect American communities. And then to end things like catch and release policies and reinstating Remain in Mexico, building the wall, those kinds of things. But it also deals with the idea of justice and even seeking the death penalty as appropriate for crimes against humanity and people who kill law enforcement officers and all of it. The Make America Safe Again. I mean, when's the last time you recall the Democrats coming into office and going, here's what we're going to do. We're going to enforce the laws. And it's almost like it's antithetical to being a Democrat to say, we're going to make America safe again. No, they want to say, we're going to make America lenient. We're going to make America comfortable for the bad guys. We're going to make American victims feel like they're being victimized twice by the way we do things. We're going to pay a stipend to every bad guy we can find and make sure they get a light sentence and maybe even get released on their own recognizance with no bail. It's nauseating. But it's not just the Trump administration. What I feel like happens. Okay, let me back up. Use your words, Phil. There's an old saying, and I say it on the show periodically, that as goes the king, so goes the country. Sometimes that's a phrase that can be used in terms of like the behavior of the person, the morals of the person, the principles of the person. Well, I can think of things that happened in the immoral. Listen, now that I say it, I don't think I've ever said it this way before. The Biden administration was an immoral organization. It was at every turn. I mean, you had transgenders prancing topless on the lawn of the White House. You had just destroying Title IX to make sure that men could be in women's locker rooms. You had the cries that we need more abortion, and it just on and on and on. It was an immoral. Finding crack in the White House. Remember that? They found a bag of cocaine. Is what it was. It was a bag of cocaine in the White House. In the White House, outside the Situation Room, in one of the little lock boxes where you put your cell phones. Someone grabbed their phone and forgot their baggie. And that's all happening in the White House. Well, as goes the king, so goes the country. Well, right now we've got a president who's brought in an administration, and it's not made of perfect people. I'm not trying to say it is, but it's coming in with a group of people that has a different sense of what is right and wrong. And one of the things that is right is making sure that we are doing all we can to make America safe again. And so the Safe Streets Initiative is a big deal. Pushing for law enforcement to be enhanced is a big deal. Getting away from woke DEI policies in our military and in law enforcement and in our FBI and all of it is a big deal. All of these things add up to a sense that the rest of the country sees that and goes, yeah. And when you see the leader do that and bring an emphasis to it, what it does is it makes people out in the hinterlands sort of straighten their spines a little bit. And that's nothing but good. So when people out in, say, Minneapolis straighten their spines a little bit, things happen like what happened the other day. I say Minneapolis, Traverse City, Michigan. I meant to say Michigan. Out in Michigan just last week, story here on the New York Post. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. You may recall that just the other day in Traverse City, Michigan, we had a guy with a knife who just went into a Walmart and began randomly stabbing people, just running around stabbing people. Stabbed multiple, 6 of them. 6 of them went to the hospital. Now they're all expected to recover, but make America safe again. Well, we had a guy named Derek Perry, a good guy with a gun. And by the way, I'm not gonna shy away from this. He was a black guy and a former Marine. And we got his picture right now thank you, JP. He got his picture up on the live stream right now. And the left ought to run with this. I mean, you're talking about, I mean, how often do we see things like the heinous situation that I'll cover later with the beat down of the street with young black thugs beating up a white couple simply for being in their way? This is a great guy right here. He's a former Marine, and he's a black guy with dreadlocks. And you know what? He was also a concealed carry permit holder, and he pulled his concealed carry, and he held that bad guy. And then, you know what else happened? You look at it, it was like a microcosm of all that's right with America. You had a good guy with a gun who was black, and he had a bunch of other guys who were white. They all banded together, and they held that bad guy until the police got there. Safe streets? Well, when the leaders say, go for safe streets, it inspires people in the streets to make them safer too. And what you just saw was a good guy with a gun in Traverse City, Michigan, named Derek Perry, do the right thing. I got more on this, though. There's a lot to talk about. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. So if you wouldn't mind, just tell them real quickly where your relationship with the Lord really originated.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing about, man. We just heard SEAL, obviously husband, wife. Yeah, the SEAL was a cool thing. The jobs we do, law enforcement, human trafficking, that's all neat stuff, and it's important stuff. Running for Senate, that's important. We talked about politics earlier. I was kind of surprised to hear a church talk as much about politics as y'all's church has. That's great, and those are important things. But your most important relationship, my most important physical relationship, wife and girls. But more important even than that is what's eternal, and that's my relationship with Jesus. So by that I mean, because in political season, everybody's a Christian in Alabama. That's what I've learned. What that actually means is I believe that Jesus came, lived a perfect life, died, rose again on the 3rd day for my sins and yours, and it's through him we're set free. And if you don't know him, ask God to reveal himself to you, and I promise you he'll do it tonight, and it will be in the person of Jesus Christ, and you can do one or two things. You can believe the lie that Pilate believed and wash your hands and say, I'm innocent of this man's blood, or you can believe who he is, Lord and Savior, the person of Jesus Christ, who that is. That's what I believe. That's what I mean by Christian. And I asked Christ in my heart when I was 6 years old in my mom and dad's bedroom in a trailer in Gaston, Alabama.
And it's good stuff, man. By the way, I got to tell you something he said to me that was so off the cuff a minute ago. You probably don't realize how quickly you jabbed me. But he walks up on the stage, and I said, hey, dude. And he goes, hey, man. I said, by the way, I'm here to tell you I'm running against you. And he looks at me and he goes, I thought Rangers lead the way. Why are you behind? I mean,
RLTW, baby.
He didn't even skip a beat. All right, so good-natured ribbing, but deep respect. You were in the SEAL teams. It is no small thing to get through buds to be a SEAL. I'll just say that for you. You don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. Deep respect. I've been out to Coronado on TDY. The water's always cold. By the way, in San Diego, it is always freezing.
But it snowed during my hell week, flurried on the beach.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. But that being said, you became a member of an organization that is deeply respected around the world for the combat skills it taught you. But the thing, like for instance, when I think I told you during our podcast, when I went through Ranger School, I learned all the things about small unit tactics and patrolling and mountaineering and all the things. But I learned a lot about myself. I learned about things about myself I didn't like. I learned about things that I didn't know were there. And then later on, looking back, I realized it did things for me that I didn't realize it was going to do. So your time as a SEAL, aside from your military experience, which is incredible, what did you gain from it as an individual?
Personally, what I gained from it as an individual is it taught me, because I believe this is something that you're taught. This is not something that you're necessarily born with, some maybe more than others, but it taught me perseverance, right? And we know what Scripture tells us. I mean, through perseverance comes what? Faith, right? But it taught me real perseverance, real suffering, physical suffering. I have people all the time say, "Oh, I could do the mental part, but I couldn't do the physical part." You don't get it. It is so physical, it becomes mental. That's the problem with it. Like it's pain that I still deal with. I mean, how 20-something years down the road, 20 years down the road, there's issues that I still have just from training, just from going through BUDS training. So it taught me perseverance.
You're going to need it in politics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing with politics, what I've learned is when people ask, it's not that hard. Yeah. It's just a hassle. Yeah. That is the one thing that I would say in politics. It hasn't been that hard. It is just hassle-some. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Can't we? I wish we could get physical, but all we do is sit here and talk.
You know what, though? I will say this. So I told him when we did our podcast, there's two things that every former SEAL does is write a book or run for office, one or the other. And you've done both.
I did both. Yeah. Although I wrote a pamphlet. It's only like 38 pages long.
Okay, so, that works. All right, but so here you are running for office. You've got a life that proves you understand and gain the value of perseverance. You don't quit easy. You've got a mission mindset. You've been in the trenches fighting human trafficking. You got out of the teams, but you still kept the skill set going, and you teach other people. So all these things, and you've got a great life. And I'll just tell you right now, by the way, if you haven't checked out the website for Covenant Rescue Group, which is one of his two businesses, they do amazing things. And if you're reading stories online about, human trafficking busted in so-and-so county or human trafficking busted in California or whatever, a lot of times you're going to find Covenant Rescue Group was the advisory group that was there helping local law enforcement gain the ability to do it, train the trainer kind of stuff. All right, that being said, why do you want to leave it all and go into politics? Besides the fact that God called you, why do you want to leave?
First off, I mean, I don't want to leave it just to go into politics. And that's what somebody said to me when I was asked back in probably March time frame by some people who support our organization. They knew Coach Tubberwell, and they said, "Hey, Coach is going to be running for governor. Are you interested in running for his open U.S. Senate seat?" My initial response was, no, I'm not, because I don't have that political ambition. But as Pastor was talking about a little bit ago, and as some of y'all talked about tonight, it's kind of that, Esther's name was Hadassah. I don't know if anybody knows that, right? And there's an organization called Hadassah's Hope. But in Esther, they say, Mordecai says, maybe you were born for such a time as this. And how can I sit here and look at my kids if we continue to go the way we're going, right? And I didn't stand up and fight. Yeah, we did human trafficking, we did all that, but I had the opportunity to run for Senate. Not everybody has the opportunity to run for U.S. Senate and be successful. But this opportunity fell in my lap. I'm just a regular guy from Gardner, Alabama. It doesn't happen to a guy like me, but there's no doubt it was the Lord opened the door. So that was kind of the reason, I guess, that it pushed me to talk to my wife. But the position of Senate, I found out, it's a force multiplier. And a force multiplier in the SEAL teams is a machine gun. I can take a machine gun, I can turn one SEAL into 4 SEALs, right? And this position of U.S. Senate is a force multiplier, and it's a force multiplier for good or it's a force multiplier for bad. The position itself is neutral. It only takes on the face of the person that embodies it. And I couldn't live with myself if I had an opportunity to do it and somebody bad wound up embodying that position. I had no idea who would run for it or who wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, like the dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Taco Tuesday. We're glad you're with us. I'm in this first dipper, hour 2, dipper 1, safe streets. So a moment ago made the point that the guy out in Traverse City who ran around at a Walmart with a knife stabbing people was stopped. Before police got there, he was stopped by a good guy with a gun. The good guy with the gun. That's an important factor that the libs hate it when you say that. Good guy with a gun. What is a good guy with a gun? Well, it's a good guy with a gun. What else do you need from me? But the reality is, what I told you earlier is already happening. So during the break, I just happened to see that Governor Kathy Hochul, oh yeah, Lord Jesus, Governor Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York State, just posted on Twitter exactly what I was warning you about in my monologue earlier. She says 4 lives stolen. An NYPD officer leaves behind a pregnant wife and 2 young sons. And that's true. And that's a tragedy. But then she says, because a gunman from a state with weak gun laws brought an AR-15 to New York. We once had a national assault weapons ban. It worked. Republicans in Congress must find the courage to pass it again. Well, let's be honest. It didn't work. It didn't work because it wasn't enforceable. It also wasn't necessary. It also didn't lower the crime rate one whit. In fact, if I need to go pull that up again, I will. But I've dissected it on this show before. The statistics clearly show that the so-called national assault weapons ban, like what, by the way, what is an assault weapon? Can you have an assault bat? Can you have an assault knife? Can you have an assault vehicle? I mean, people use other things besides firearms. Are they all assaults if they use them? They don't even know what an assault weapon is. But the end result is she absolutely believes that we need more gun control laws. Well, how did your gun controls work out? Your gun control laws work out there, Governor Hochul? Not that great. Because a bad guy who wants to bring a gun in to do a crime is going to do it because the bad guys could care less about the crime. They don't care about criminal penalties. They're already bad guys. They don't abide by the laws pretty much like that's part of the definition of being a bad guy. So all that to say, there's Governor Hochul the morning after, and she's already posting how she wants more gun control laws and says Republicans in Congress must find the courage to pass it again. Somebody needs to remind her that that narrative has never worked, ever, like in the history of ever.
I want to take a look at England too. Took away all their guns, and now stabbings are rampant. It's just like violent people are going to do violent things. Like you're either going to disarm the people who are going to stop them, like Derek Perry, or you're just going to, let what happened in New York City, continue to happen because the violence is not going to go away.
Yeah,
violent people are going to do violent things.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding. At what point does it stop? Well, we took all the guns. Now we got to have the knives.
Yeah.
Well, we got all the knives. Now we got to have the bats. I don't know. You can't carry a stick. I don't know.
Fists. You get everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, hey,
no
off.
fists. hey, no fists. Open palms only. Well, that can be a weapon too.
Yes, sure.
It never ends. It never ends with the left because they don't want to believe that it's their own inability to enforce the law. Listen, last night, I'll be honest with you, I listened to some great narrative most of the way back. It was like a 2-hour drive back from the town hall last night. And a lot of the way back, I was listening to Fox commentary, trying to hear what all was going on with the situation in New York State or New York City, actually. And I was listening to a guy, and I thought, this guy's a great commentator. I don't know who he was because I was listening to it on radio, but this guy's a former NYPD detective, and he was talking with knowledge of the inside about how all of the precincts are understaffed now. And he named one of them, like he knew him like the back of his hand. He goes, "Oh, it's coming out of the 47, and the 47 used to have 9 cars at a time on the road. Now they're down to 2, maybe 3 at most, and that's across the board." And then he talked about response time. If you want to see police intervention in a situation, you have to have police who are in proximity to the situation. If you only have 2 to 3 where you used to field 9, then it stands to reason that the likelihood that a crime being committed may have a longer response time because there's fewer police who may be further away to get to you. That response time is imperative. It's like the golden hour when you're a medevac pilot. If you can get the wounded soldier from the battlefield to the triage site for medical attention within the first hour, that golden hour means something. Well, the same is true for response time on law enforcement. You want to make American streets safe again? How about this? Back the blue. There's your answer. Enforce the laws, DAs, and back the blue, mayors and city councils. And yet, here we are. New York City, which, by the way, I love New York City. I was there just a few weeks ago doing that CNN gig. I'm going back next week. But the reality is, we are looking at one of the legendary cities in the world being understaffed on law enforcement, and then they want to know, is it the firearm that caused it? Well, no, because he drove in from Nevada with it in the trunk of his car, so apparently not. And by the way, I listen, okay, thank you to CNN for having me on, but I got to say, I do not understand the CNN commentator they had on last night. The guy was a chucklehead. John Miller, CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, looking at the picture of the shooter, who, by the way, his name was Shane Tamura. And Shane Tamura is a black guy, very obviously a black guy. How can I tell? Well, because he was black. So it's got nothing to do with the crime. It just means that that's his skin color. But when you're talking about, be on the lookout, here's the suspect, what do we know about him? And you look right at the picture and go, well, it could be a white guy. Why would he do that? I got to bring that up because it was asinine. I'm sorry. That's not even really part of that just struck me as being something worthy of reporting.
Yeah, possibly white. It's like
it's possibly white.
Okay.
What does that even mean, dude? You have the photo in front of you. It's not a white guy. It's a black guy, and I'm not sure why it matters. But there it is. But then let's talk about safe streets. Who you put in place to make decisions matters. So as we find out more about this situation in New York City, the guy drove from Nevada. Obviously, it was targeted. It's not likely that he drove across the country, arrived in downtown Manhattan, and randomly picked up, a multi-story high-rise and then just started shooting people. It was targeted. What we're learning now is apparently he was mad at the NFL for reasons I don't quite fathom. He has football-related injuries or conditions that he never played for the NFL, as far as we know. JP said he heard he played for the Canadian Football League. Is that right?
Yeah, I played pro in Canada.
Okay. So he played Canadian Football League, but he's mad at Goodell and the folks at NFL.
Yeah, well, what I saw was, I think we mentioned this earlier, but that he was mad because the NFL claimed he had CTE. I don't know. I haven't heard the background, but my guess is something along the lines of he was maybe trying to get into the NFL or something NFL related. Did a test and deemed he had early signs of CTE, something like that.
Well,
is what I saw.
All I know is this was targeted. It was obvious he came there for a purpose. It's also obvious that a police officer was present because there was a police officer who died on the scene. And this police officer was indeed a young officer, 3 or maybe 4 years on the job, already had 2 small children, had a third on the way, left behind a beautiful young family. And he was there working after hours security for the building. And the gunman walked in the front door, and that was his first shot. And he fired, and he killed the police officer without any hesitation. Just opened fire and killed him. Killed another, I think, coming out of the elevator, and then rode to the 33rd floor. Killed another and another, and then I think he actually killed a security guard downstairs first, and then he went upstairs, and then shot himself. That being said, that's New York City. Let's take a look at who's running for mayor of New York City. Zohran Mamdani, the so-called champagne socialist, the limousine liberal, the guy who loves to live large and just had his international wedding in Uganda, protected by security officials with guns, wants to defund the police if he becomes mayor of New York City. When I get back from this break, I'm going to tell you about him and some of the things he said. You want to make streets safe again? It matters who you put in office, my friends. It does. It's not just law enforcement. It's not just plussing up the men and women in blue. You got to give them the backing of the council and the mayor's office too. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I knew that if somebody bad embodies that position and I had the opportunity to step up and try to be that good force multiplier, I don't know if I could live with myself or even, be able to look my daughters in the face as they're the ones who are going to have to pay for it years down the road. So that was what drove me toward that, not political ambition, the service to my family, to my state, and ultimately the nation.
All right, so I'm going off the cuff here, but I will tell you to all of y'all that one of the very first reactions that Moses had when the burning bush was in front of him was to say, "Who, me?" He really didn't want to do it. I think that's a great sign. All right, so that being said, take a minute, give a stump speech. I mean, if you take on this office, become the force multiplier for good as a U.S. Senator for the state of Alabama. Is there a passion project? Is there a policy issue? Is there a thing that you're like, man, if I get elected, I'm doing this? I mean, what would it be? What would you hang your hat on?
What would I hang my hat on as a U.S. Senator? I would say the biggest thing as a U.S. Senator outside of life, which he already spoke about, right? And that's kind of general, right? I think everybody in this room, you're in a church night, you're probably pro-life, if I had to guess. So that's a stance that you can make. Fight the woke agenda, right? I think that's even on our website. And she was talking about that with the school stuff, right? We want to fight against the woke agenda, educating our children. That's an easy thing to say. But I would say specifically local, right? Push for local government. Now, this is a U.S. Senate position, but it was either John Locke or William Blackstone, I can't remember which, maybe both of them, that said the closest form of government to the people is the most effective form of government, right? As a U.S. Senator, I will not be the closest form of government to you here in Huntsville, but pushing people to understand their job as we, the people, in electing not just federal government, but local government. So I think those are all what they covered are those big general things. But if I look at one really serious passion project, the biggest thing that I see, the biggest thing that bothers me as a small business owner and as a guy who runs a nonprofit, as a dad who's a pastor of a church, organizations that have to deal with government, is everything the government gets their fingers involved in winds up being not very good. The government is very ineffective and inefficient at what they do. They're good at some things. National security is what they're supposed to be good at, right? Waging war, right? So our military forces, infrastructure, roads. There's some things that government is good at and it's supposed to be there for. Their finger's not supposed to be on the scale of private equity business, certain things that we have to survive and to live. And that's why you talk about churches, Pastor. I see you sitting over there, so I'll use church as an example. That's why a lot of times churches step out of talking about politics, because we can't get too political because we might lose our 501c3 status. I mean, it's a government registering. My biggest passion project would be teaching the people, as he said earlier, we're the kings and queens of this nation. We, the people, is the top of the chain of command. Not U.S. Senator, not president, not anybody else that you would elect. We, the people, is the top of the chain of command. And I'm supposed to be a representative or a voice that is doing the will of we, the people, and leveraging, in this case, my yes or no. That's what I get, a yes or no vote. Leveraging my yes or no to get us as close to the right answer as possible so that I bring the issues of the people of Alabama to Washington, D.C., and not the issues of Washington, D.C. back to the people of Alabama. On the other side of it, for those of y'all in here running for local office, and that's what you did, right? You running it for a state office. They're elected to take the issues that you have here in Huntsville, Madison County, wherever you're at in this area or Decatur, I guess we're close to Decatur to Montgomery, not the issues of Montgomery back here to your city and town. And then finally, like you were talking about at the extreme local level, running for a school board position, you're supposed to be able to take the issues of how we educate these students back to the parents, say, these are the issues we're having, and not create issues where the parents have to come to you and say, why has this not been fixed? That is the purpose of government. I would say that's my biggest passion project, is making sure we understand our role. We are the kings and queens of this nation. That's how we were founded. That's the principles of our republic. And we have to understand that. I think so many people don't. That's why you have 20% turnout in a local election. And even 60% for a presidential election seems extremely low to me, to be honest with you, especially during the times that we're in.
Yeah, no doubt. Good stuff. All right. We'll go to questions here in just a minute. By the way, if you've not filled out your questions, if you have one you want to write down, just do that and then like pass it to the center of the aisle. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. So I'm still in this dipper right now. Safe Streets. It was my number one. It was my lead story. So I'm running with it, baby. But Zohran Mamdani. Yep. The limousine liberal, the champagne socialist, the guy who wants to be mayor of New York City, and he could become mayor of New York City. By the way, the elections, I thought we had the election next month, but the election is in November. But he has a long-standing history of crying for defunding of the police. Oh yeah, the guy who wants to head up the city that just suffered a shooting like this wants to defund the police. The guy who wants to head up the city where they just lost another law enforcement officer to a criminal act wants to defund the police. On June 8th of 2020, Mamdani posted on his Twitter feed, "We don't need an investigation to know the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need is to quote, hashtag defund the NYPD, but your deal with uses budget tricks." He's talking about the current mayor, "to keep as many cops as possible on the beat. No to fake cuts. Defund the police." That's the guy who wants to be mayor. I read you his stuff. I didn't make it up. Did you just pull that up? How'd you do that?
The internet.
That's some JP magic is what that is. All right. See if you can do another one. You ready? He also said, where was it? On November 5th of 2020, I believe it was. No, in December of the same year. He called for the NYPD to be dismantled. He said, "All this misery, all for money. In the last budget, the city council tried to make the NYPD reduce its overtime budget by half. They simply refused. There's no negotiating with an institution this wicked and corrupt. Defund it, dismantle it, end the cycle of violence." Okay. Then this lying charlatan did a mayoral debate during his primary. Confronted with his past statements, his own statements, suddenly he says, quote, "I will not defund the police. I will work with police because I believe the police have a critical role to play in public service." Listen, on his campaign website, he calls for the creation of a Department of Public Safety. You know, the usual tripe. We're going to put like counselors on the street, and we're going to send social workers to respond to 911 calls and see if we can talk them down before we bring in the people who actually know how to enforce things. That's just the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Do not put this guy, please, my New York brethren, do not put this guy in charge of the Big Apple. Do not do it. The crossroads of the world needs to remain open. And the lovely Charlene and I want to go back to Broadway. But that's the whole idea of safe streets, the whole idea of having Make America Safe Again. It's a leadership issue. I don't care what level, I don't care what small town you live in. I don't care what big city you live in. I don't care if you're looking at it from a national perspective. Safe streets is a leadership issue. The men and women in blue who are in law enforcement, they will do their jobs, but they need the support of the people who are supposed to be giving them what they need to do their jobs. And oh, by the way, we need more of them to be doing the job. What we need is recruiting drives. And I don't mean like fake recruiting drives. I don't mean like Boston PD doing fake recruiting drives where they're saying, we're going to recruit more Muslim police officers. I don't care if it's a Muslim, if it's a Christian, if it's a Buddhist, if it's a men or women in blue and 911 is going on and they come to rescue whatever situation me or my loved ones are in. I just want to know they're going to do a good job. Well, I think it's very important that we have diversity in the ranks and that we recruit from the Muslim community. They're actually doing a legitimate call for a Muslim recruiting as an official policy of the Boston Police Department. Make that make sense. I'm sorry, you can't. How about in Cincinnati? We just had this horrible situation. You've probably seen the videos on social media. A man and a woman leave a theater, apparently, and they're white. And things that I don't understand, apparently words were exchanged or something, but there was just a crowd of black youths who decided to attack them and do a group beatdown. Had the man in the street kicking and punching, like left him bloody. The woman tried to intervene. What did they do? They beat her up and knocked her out. And it was gay. And what happened? You had 100 people, literally. I'm reading this from the police chief who gave, I got it right here from Fox News, Dateline yesterday. Cincinnati police chief says out of 100 people that were watching and recording this violent beatdown in the street, only one called 911. They got one call, one 911 call. Listen, Safe Streets is also cultural. You cannot, as a community, allow this kind of behavior. And you don't sit there and film it. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, would you please tell your kids and grandkids, if you see a bad thing, the first thing you do with your phone is you call 911. You don't stop and start filming it.
Thank you. Drives me nuts to people who think that they just got to get this for the gram, got to get this for the social media.
I'm going to get all kinds of hits on this one. How many views will I have? It's ridiculous. Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for governor of Ohio, because this is in Cincinnati, says, hardworking Americans shouldn't have to worry about their safety when they have a good time in our cities. Not a single local or state official has yet reached out, other than one police detective. Leftists like to lecture us about systemic injustices while thugs turn our cities into war zones, and I'm done with their excuses. He said, all right, if I'm governor, our cops will have the green light to restore order. No apologies. There you go. But the Cincinnati police chief, Teresa Thetji, whatever. Anyway, talk about somebody not inspiring confidence. She looks like, I don't know, somebody's mama borrowed a uniform and went and did a press conference. Does not inspire confidence. She decided to blame the media. You saw that, didn't you?
I did.
She decided to blame the media. The media and social media are making the story out to be something that it's not. They're over amplifying. They're not taking things into context. It's a beatdown.
Pretty much just insecure that she's getting attacked is what it was.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Maybe she's not up to the job. We're going to wrap this up after the break when we get back, and I got a ton of text messages. I got a couple more things that I'll point out to you, just things you might want to know, like what is Trump doing about homelessness from the national level? Well, there's actually something going on. But yes, there are good things happening. Make America safe again is real, and it's at every level. It's not just a Fed thing. It's a local thing. It's a your community thing. It's a how you raise your kids thing. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll get them real quick here in just a minute. All right, I heard your heart. I heard where you're at with your relationship with the Lord. You're a family man. Your military background. Let me ask you this. There's been a lot in the news lately, especially with the tragedy out of Bibb County, about things that have been perpetrated on children. You and I had a discussion during our podcast about, first of all, one of his companies is called the Shooting Institute, and that's the one you use to train military and law enforcement. But then you have Covenant Rescue Group. And I asked you at some point during that podcast, how did that come about? Where did Covenant Rescue Group come from? And if you don't mind, since all that is so fresh in the news right now, I think it's a big piece of your resume. So I'd appreciate it if you tell the folks why Covenant Rescue Group and what it does.
Yeah, so Covenant Rescue Group, we basically fund training for what we call CONUS, Continental U.S. Operations. We do work OCONUS outside of Continental U.S., so overseas. We do work OCONUS some. However, our primary focus is here in the United States with local law enforcement and then sometimes federal law enforcement. I'm still sworn in the state of Alabama. I'm still sworn as a federal TFO with Homeland Security. But our goal is to work at the local level because going back to what I said earlier, the John Locke quote, is the closest form of government with people is the most effective form of government. and working with a local agency to target individuals who are primarily buying or selling children for sex. That would be the primary focus of it, child exploitation. We worked in Huntsville recently. Actually, we worked in Huntsville a good bit this year. But with all of that being said, our focus is to do that at no charge for the law enforcement agency. My wife and I, we started it. Business was going well. The Lord was opening doors, blessing us. We started it. In 2018, 2019, got our 501c3 status, and we're off to the races. So we've been around since 2018, really 2019, when we really started doing the work. And the goal is to train local law enforcement, but then we don't just train them and turn them over to their own, hey, good luck, guys, go get them. It's a combat advisor concept, a ground branch concept, or a Green Beret concept, where we teach them how to do it, and then we set up a live operation for them, and we run that live operation with them to show them that it actually works. And we generally make about 8 to 10 arrests per operation wherever we're at in the nation. And the other side of that is, for every 50 little girls that a guy is showing up, or for every individual that you arrest, there's 50 little girls in their wake before they're prosecuted, not before they're arrested. You have individuals that are arrested, they're going out and they continue to, offend in this way. But when they're prosecuted, we find out there's about 50 in their wake. That's the statistic. For every individual showing up for a little boy, there's 150 victims in their wake until they're prosecuted. So our goal is to make sure that we don't just get the arrest. That's physical apprehension. That's the most fun part. That's, to kidnap a predator. That's the best thing ever. It would be nice to say report to the parking lot for the firing squad. Kill people for less, right?
Bring back stoning.
That's what I'm talking about. I'll be the first one to hit him in the head with my tomahawk. I mean, that'd be great. So we want to do it effectively. So you have to get a successful prosecution. And so that's the other aspect of what we do with Covenant Rescue Group. We work with a law enforcement agency. We work with the prosecutor's office to hit those two aspects of law enforcement in our nation, which is physical apprehension and then successful prosecution. Because if you don't, it's symbolism without substance. And that's what our organization does.
So several things y'all may have gotten. And by the way, this is not planned. We're just bouncing stuff off each other. But I heard several things in there. One, they do it at no cost. That means it's a mission. It's not a business. It's a mission. And number two, it's knowing all the facts and figures of what he's citing. So this is something they've steeped themselves in to go and do it. And the other thing I heard you say was you go and you train them how to do it and you teach them that it works.
Yeah.
And then they can do it again after you leave.
That's the goal, was to work ourselves out of a job. That's the end goal.
Which is a great job for politicians too, by the way.
Work themselves out of a job.
That's right. Exactly.
I heard some guys say you need to change politicians as often as you change diapers. And I thought that was pretty good.
That'd be awesome. All right, listen, we're going to, unless you got something else you want to chime in on, we're going to go to questions.
Let's
all right?
go to questions.
All right, let's do it. Emily, you got them all? Okay, we're going to do questions. Do you want to hand them to me? Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the Southeast US of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just radio, just the radio footprint. All you Rightside ruffians on the radio. That's where y'all are all located. And then, oh, by the way, there's a ton of y'all that live stream the show. Live stream it live every single day, going out there in the whole wide world, on the World Wide Web, picking it up on places like YouTube, X, Facebook, our website, rightsidemedia.org. Live streaming the show, looking right into the studios. And then, oh, by the way, there's a bunch of y'all that podcast it as well. So I say all that to say, we know where you are, folks, and we love you. And we appreciate it. And wherever you get this show, just hear me say it. We do it because of you. So thank you very much. I got a ton of text messages. You want to text in, tell me what you think about the Safe Streets Initiative or the gun control issue, either one. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. By the way, that situation in Cincinnati with the beatdown by the group of thugs on the couple, which appeared to be a racially motivated event. Harmeet Dillon, who is the spokesperson now for the, and I'm sorry, she's one of the senior counsels for the Department of Justice, has said that she's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Is actually her title. She has confirmed that the FBI is going to be monitoring this investigation. They're not going to let this thing get away. They're not going to let this thing just like, oh, that thing that we didn't want to do because we didn't want to enrage anybody. But they also said a minute ago on the news, I just saw it up on the screen, they have arrested 5 suspects. But you know why? Because everybody was filming it. So they had plenty of opportunity to go, let me see your social media. Oh, you apparently know him because you're crowing about how good his last punch was. Let's talk to you and find out what his name was. So they've actually detained 5 people right now. And then there's safe streets in this regard. It's not just like criminal activity. Sometimes it's just places you just don't feel like you can even go anymore. And one of the things that really just, I cannot believe happens, especially to beautiful cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Birmingham. We're talking about homeless encampments. We're talking about, and I understand that people hit hard times. This is not a reflection on the fact that homelessness does occur. What I'm saying is homelessness that's being allowed to be perpetrated in the form of these large encampments that take over city streets and make it so, I mean, there's places where you just don't go. You can't take kids anymore. There are parks that are no longer safe. Well, President Trump issued an executive order. I told you last week that he was going to, and he did. President Trump issued an executive order intended to bring back what is known as civil commitment. In other words, the ability to put people who are a danger to themselves or others into institutions, even against their will. It's a little scary when I hear that. Granted, I get you. It is. But what he's saying is there's 2 reasons why people are on the street. There's usually the people on one hand that are financially disadvantaged that do need perhaps a hand up, not a handout, but a hand up, an opportunity to find worth in work and maybe find work for that matter. Maybe though, there's also those who are on the streets because it's an addiction or mental health problem. And the reality is homelessness related to mental health or addiction is not a homelessness problem. It's a mental health or addiction problem. And if the person is shooting up in a tent city on the street corner and they're sitting there falling asleep, standing up with a needle sticking out of their arm, the problem is not that they're homeless. The problem is that they're addicts. If they are crazy people who talk to themselves and wander the streets defecating in street corners, then the problem is not that they are homeless. The problem is that they have a mental health issue. President Trump is focused on the idea that perhaps what they need is a change of venue to get them into a place of stability so they can then recover and stop taking up street corners at the same time. Lastly, I will tell you this. Make America Safe Again. A big bunch of that deals with the illegal immigration problem. Daily Signal has a piece dateline yesterday that I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands. It's an exclusive look at the numbers that have just been released by a major review done by the Department of Homeland Security. It says new data shows that the arrests of criminal illegal aliens have made a real impact on public safety. Look at that. You don't say. You mean you arrest illegal aliens, especially those with criminal records, and it actually makes the streets safer? I never would have dreamed. You mean if you don't let them take over whole apartment complexes in places like Aurora, Colorado, the community might feel better about itself? No. You mean if you stop criminal illegals from conducting organized crime on the streets of San Francisco, the businesses won't shut down and leave? No. Who would have thought? Every single day, said Tricia McLaughlin, DHS Assistant Secretary, in a press release, every single day we're arresting gang members, murderers, pedophiles, and violent predators. 70% of ICE arrests are of illegal aliens who have been convicted or charged with a crime. During the first 6 months of 2025, it says homicides fell by 17% across 30 U.S. cities. Wow. 17% from what it was this time last year. Wow. In the first 6 months of 2025, there were 10% fewer reported aggravated assaults, 21% fewer gun assaults, 10% fewer sexual assaults, 3% more domestic violence incidents, when compared to last year. I'm just telling you, that's amazing. Robberies are down 20%. Carjacking fell by 24%. Vehicle theft was rising for the summer of 2020 through 23, but it did begin reversing in 2024. But since Trump took office, the Trump administration has arrested nearly 300,000 illegal aliens, deported more than 239,000 of them, and 75% of U.S. voters feel that it is making their streets safer. Safe streets, my friends. Make America safe again. It's real, and it's also worth doing, because hear me when I say it. There are some essential services of government. There are some things that government is supposed to do. One of them is public safety. And you don't get there by being soft on crime, weak on homelessness, and trying to put gun control in place so that the good guys can't have guns. It doesn't work like that. And you got to back the blue. You got to make sure that the men and women in law enforcement know that they are supported, cared for, and augmented with all that they need to do the job. There you have it. Safe streets. Let me grab some text messages. You guys are amazing, prolific texters. I got to scroll way down. Good Lord. Joe in Tennessee says CTE, that's chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Yes, you got it.
I got it. Wow. Can only be confirmed by autopsy. Otherwise, it's just a conjecture. Even the liberal Wikipedia gets it right. Well, Okay, Joe. Thank you very much. Dave from Capshaw again says, Phil, related to the story you told last night about that California mayor who took action on ending homelessness in the city. That I believe last week, there it is, signed an executive order. Yes, He did. I just talked about it. Thank you very much, Dave. You're right. He said this order shifts federal funding away from housing first programs and emphasizes institutional care as solutions. There you go. Karen R. from Rogersville says another acronym that everyone knows.
The text before.
Oh, NASA. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you. I just realized I didn't know where we were going, but okay. We got a new texter in the line is Jeff from somewhere. But thank you, Jeff. We're glad you're there. David from Huntsville says, if Obama is not held to account for his involvement in Russiagate, David, you're so off topic right now, brother. He said, we owe President Nixon an apology. I don't disagree, but yep, thank you. Gray Falcon from Ardmore says, when seconds count, cops are minutes away. When seconds counts, cops are minutes away. Well, yeah, when you don't upfund them and give them enough, absolutely. That's exactly what will happen. Adam from Athens says, Dim's gun control does absolutely nothing, but mine does. I use both hands. Paul from Huntsville says, I learned to charge towards an ambush. Yep, there you go. Bob from Madison says, oh no, they're going to take our cranes, our canes.
Canes, yeah.
Canes, sorry, canes. Our canes. Mountain Mikey from Flintstone says, Flintstone, Georgia says, if we had outlawed rocks, would Cain have still killed Abel? Wow. He'd have found something else to do it with. That's a bumper sticker if I ever heard one. If we had outlawed rocks, would Cain have still killed Abel? Wow. Harriet from Madison said, oh, thank you, Harriet. Said I was blessed to meet you yesterday and glad to hear from Jared Hudson, who I'll be voting for as a senator for the great state of Alabama. Harriet from Madison. Harriet, it was great to meet you as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Jeff Rowe from Indiana says, hey, Phil, the CNN guy said possibly a white guy in New York State could have been a tranny. So I would have said it could have been a man. More accurate, could have been a woman that's taking a chance on misgendering someone. Boy, he's voice texting in a big way. It says misgingering somebody. No, they didn't have red hair. Jerry from Decatur says, to me, the problem with the left is they have zero empathy for victims of crime or babies in the womb. They love darkness and hate light before they're always on the wrong side of all issues. Airborne. Jerry laying it down hard. All right. Airborne to you. JT Lacey Springs says, New York City mayor hopeful. Turn away your security. Unlock your home and car. Leave your garage door open and then talk police defunding. Won't happen. He wants to live in Gracie Mansion and have all the security. Yeah,
it's funny. He's having his wedding in Uganda with armed security around him. So I guess it's for me, but not for thee.
Oh, yes.
That's typically how it goes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Matt from Madison says, I guess it needed repeating once in a while. Outlaw guns and only outlaws will have guns. Nailed it. Bobby from Moulton says, Mala, make America logical again. Sounded a little Hawaiian there. And Dave Capshaw also says too, you mentioned the spectators in Cincinnati filming the beatdown. Made me think of the video I saw last week of a passenger jet had a tire on fire, and as passengers were sliding down the emergency exit, one person was taking the video while he was sliding down. Another fellow was typing out a text as he was exiting the burning plane.
Yeah, that video was nuts because you got all these guys who are, not sitting and standing by helping the women and children. They're either off and running or they're filming, or it's like, yeah, what in the world?
I just had somebody send me a meme a little while ago, a friend of mine on a text, personal text. He sent me a meme and it had, the three monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Mm-hmm.
It said they found the fourth monkey and it was sitting there holding a phone. And it said he can see, hear, or speak no evil.
Yeah.
He's not doing any of it.
He can film it though.
Yeah. And then Tom with all the kids says prosecuting criminals works too. Just read an article about Baltimore and the reduction in crime. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, Dipper number 2 coming up. It's Trump World. Oh, yeah, it is. Y'all stay tuned. Just go grab a few. You ain't do what? There's one. Oh, there's more right here.
Dang, y'all got a stack of questions.
Thank you. There's another one. Oh, dude, we got you a bunch of questions here. All right. So listen, we don't have all night. I will go ahead and take the hit if your question is not one of the ones that I call out. All right. He has no say in this, but I gotta guard the fact that the church has to close its doors at some point tonight. Let me start with the first ones. Let's see here what I got. Let's see here. This is, by the way, on my show, I'm reading out people's text messages all the time. More than once, I have been halfway through reading it and gone, so give me a second. I don't want to in church, all right? So, all right, here's one for you. You ready? That was almost like my show. I'm writing on the paper. All right. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. As a U.S. Senator, how will you work to reinforce recent executive orders that restrict federal funding to schools and libraries based upon their use of DEI, sexually explicit books, gender confusion ideology, all aimed at children? So basically, how will you help the Trump administration to reinforce what is currently just an executive order?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've all seen this over the last, probably 4 presidency, going all the way back to Obama. We see presidents that try to rule with executive, orders, and you can't do that, right? You can't rule with executive orders because as soon as Obama was done, Trump got in, he's undoing stuff and putting new stuff in. And then as soon as Trump's done and Biden gets in, what's he doing? He's undoing what Trump did and now Trump's back in. And so he's undoing and redoing that. And it's a constant thing. It's this constant back and forth we see in the bureaucracy of government of all of these shifts being made. You cannot rule. Our nation was not set up. You talked about the principles earlier. The principles of our nation was not set up to rule by executive order. Now, the executive is an important position. You talked about the Federalists and the non-Federalists. The Federalists wanted a strong executive, right? With that being said, you can't rule by executive order. You have to have congressmen and senators. You have to have a legislative branch that's in place. You have to have a judicial branch that's in place that can, one, help codify and make sure that we're codifying things that are constitutionally sound. And in my opinion, is to remove the finger of government, the red tape of government off of we the people, because again, we're the kings and queens of this nation. And by the way, who's heard freedom ain't free? Raise your hand if you've heard that. It's paid for with somebody else's blood, but more importantly, there is a responsibility for your freedom. There is a responsibility for your liberty. I am not of the independent mindset of everybody can just do whatever they want. No, there's always going to be a reaction to what you're doing. There is a responsibility that's there. And that's on us to make sure that we're responsible with the liberties that we have. And as a U.S. Senator, I think the best thing you can do is work to codify those executive orders that are best in line with the Constitution, that uphold our American values, the values of a democratic republic. That's our principles. We're a democratic republic, so that we don't have this back and forth. So as soon as Trump's gone and somebody else gets in there, they're trying to change it up on executive order. Otherwise, we plant a tree, and about the time it grows, we cut it down. We plant a tree, and about the time it starts growing, we cut it down. The wise person plants trees knowing they'll never sit in the shade. The goal is to plant a tree that's able to grow and produce fruit for our kids and our grandkids, and that's what I would do as U.S. Senator, make sure that we codify those good executive orders that uphold constitutional American values that best support we the people.
The wise person plants a tree knowing they'll never sit in the shade.
That's right. They'll never sit in the shade.
I'm going to just go ahead and go write that one down. All right. So that was good. Seriously. All right. You have an educated audience, by the way. All right. So some of these questions are like, whew.
Hang on, man.
I'm saying. Just go ahead and strap it on, bro. All right. So with regards to illegal immigration, do you believe in the mass deportation of all illegal immigrants? How do you envision that happening? And how would you change the current legal immigration process, such as H-1B visas, et cetera? So let's talk about illegal immigration. First of all, do you agree with the mass deportation program that the Trump administration is underway?
I do, yeah. For the most part, I agree with the mass deportation program. With that being said, because of where we're at, you have immigrants that are here illegally.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Bulletproof influence. There you go. Bulletproof influence. That's what we like to say. Hey, by the way, speaking of bulletproof influence, we have a few remaining of our second batch of the custom-made bulletproof influence bench shot glasses. I encourage you to check them out. So we have a rightsidemedia.org, our website, rightsidemedia.org, has a shop, like a merchandise store. You can buy T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, and you can buy our limited edition bench shot bulletproof influence glasses. So these are very cool. I love them. They're custom made. It's a highball glass. It actually has the Rightside Media logo engraved in it with the words bulletproof influence right underneath it, and a .308 round, a bullet, actually embedded in the glass as if it couldn't go all the way through. Hence the name bulletproof, or bench shot glasses. Made them for us. So yeah, we got custom order on that, and we'll probably have to get some more because they're almost sold out for the second time. So if you want to order a bench shot glass, there's a few left in stock. You can check it out at rightsidemedia.org. And yeah, we probably run a promo code again sometime soon, but right now go check it out and see what you like. Shirts, hats, T-shirts, bench shot glasses. I think the bench shot glass is actually one of my favorite things. It's just cool.
They're pretty sick.
They are, indeed. The only thing missing right now, we got to find a hand grenade mug.
Yeah,
it's a pulling pins on
Yep.
truth grenades. Yep. That would be next level. All right, Dipper number 2, Trump world. Oh man, listen. There are world leaders who like catch their breath when the phone rings because they're worried that it's Trump calling. There are also others who have him on speed dial because they finally got somebody who will answer the phone. So it's an entirely different dynamic when the United States actually acts like the United States. I mean, it's like the Reagan era, but it's even more than that because we got a guy in there it's almost like he's trying to see how much he can get done in the shortest amount of time. I think part of that is by design because he knows that libs are going to get their feet under him at some point and be able to, sustain their attacks a little better. Right now, they got nothing. But he's going at it in part because he also, he absolutely is intent upon making up for the fact that he had to live through the Biden era with all the lawfare and the shots being taken at him and everything else. That he's coming in with a passion right now. He's coming in hot. But he's not just doing things on the U.S. stage. He's not just saying, I'm an isolationist. All I care about is what's here. He knows that in order to make America first, in order to make America great again, he knows that the only way you can do that is to exert the influence of the United States on the world stage. It is akin to having, the best business in a certain venue. If you want to have the best law firm, you got to beat the other law firms. It's not just about having a good internal law firm. You got to practice good law, and you got to get more clients, and you got to do the things. It's the same as being a good doctor. People go to the best one. They want to deal with the doctor who gets results. They want to deal with the doctor who has good customer relations and treats you like a real person when you walk in the door. It's like having the best grocery store. And there's multiple grocery stores. People go to the ones that have the best sales, the best produce, the best customer service. Well, guess what? The world is now flocking to the United States again. Things are happening. And Trump just got back from a trip to Scotland. He actually owns a golf course in Scotland. So he's, 78 years old, swinging clubs, playing entire 18 holes. 78 years old. Just like running ring. Remember that whole thing? Remember that about JP, about Biden runs rings around the staff every day.
Sharper than ever.
Sharper than ever. We can't even keep up with him.
Actually, I think it was earlier this week, somebody had Elizabeth Warren on and was pressing her about those comments exactly. You said he was sharper than ever. He said all this stuff. My power just flickered there.
Yeah, our power just flickered. Okay, bless you, Jesus.
But then, and she was like, just watching her try to, squiggle out of it and try to, say she wasn't trying to lie. She was telling the truth. It's like it was all baloney from the beginning. But it's funny trying to, see them try to, say they weren't lying or try to, I don't know. I saw him behind closed doors and he looked fine to me. He was walking on his own 2 feet. It's like, oh, okay. So,
his own 2 feet.
So the president walking on his own 2 feet is now, something that needs to be applauded.
There's a standard.
Yeah.
Well, the bar has been set pretty low. But yeah, the bottom line is we have a president who is like truly engaged. He is driving the train. He's not just driving the American train. He's driving the world train. He just got back from this trip, and we get back from the break here in a minute. I'm going to tell you what just happened about, the deal that was made in Scotland with the EU. It's perhaps one of the biggest trade deals in the history of the United States. It's coming in strong right now, and the markets are already responding favorably to it. But it does what's called rebalancing our economic relationship, not just with like one country, but with the European Union. So now we have Great Britain already was the first one we signed. Now we have the framework for an EU deal. And listen, y'all, it is changing the dynamic on the world stage. All that, and he stopped a war at the same time. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
But they have a life. They have kids that have been born here, although illegally for them, and we run into a little bit more of a problem with their kids. I think the best way to look at it is let's, on the mass deportation program, which is what they're actively trying to do, and it's a little more difficult, find those illegal criminals that have come across, not just criminals because they're here illegally. They're criminals because they are running roughshod over the people of their communities. Kind of like y'all saw the guys in Colorado that were taking over the apartment complexes. Let's knock that out first. One of the biggest issues that I think we have as conservatives, I know that I have, is that I just want to, let's knock it all out and we're done. But we don't chop a tree down that way. And CQB, when I teach CQB, we say, CQB is close quarters battle. It's clearance, right? I got my law enforcement friend in the back shaking his head. He's like, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. And we say, CQB is like eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So when I show up to this big church to respond to an active shooter, I'm not thinking about the entire clearance. I'm thinking about the piece of the clearance that's right here in front of me, this open space that I've got to clear. I'm thinking about presenting to my corner and doing my scans, looking for people's spaces, doors, right? That is how we do it. It's the same thing with illegal immigration and deportation. We can't think of the whole problem because it's an elephant. It's too big to eat. We have to chip away at the elephant one bite at a time. The place we have to start chipping away at are those truly wicked individuals, not people who are living their regular everyday lives here in America, but those criminals that are adding to the criminal element of our society. Go after those first, go through that process, and then start working down the line from there, because there's a lot of people who you could probably take through the legal immigration process and they would be great members of our society. Every person in this room, I guarantee you've got a cleaner that cleans your house. I guarantee you've had somebody build your house or do sheetrock in your house. You've had somebody do something for you. And by the way, that's called labor trafficking. You have all been a part of labor trafficking, human trafficking. That being said, were you afraid of those people? No. A lot of them become our friends. So I think helping those who need help and can contribute to our society as Americans and will be American citizens in this country, not those who are bringing a criminal onslaught from whatever country they're coming from, or trying to elevate their country like what we see. You see the American flag being pulled down, and they'll raise a Mexican flag, or they'll raise the Palestinian flag. We got to get rid of that sort of stuff. We're in America. We need American values, because American values is what our country is founded on. That's what we, the people, stand on. Doesn't mean that you go out and round up every illegal that's here and ship them across the border. It's a little more complex than that. I guess that's the easiest way I can answer that in a lot of words.
Well, you answered about half of the next card already.
Good.
So let me ask you one question that was written at the bottom of the card, though. Jared, when elected, how many terms will you serve?
Oh, that's a great. So I learned from my friend Gary Palmer that I'm never going to say how many terms I would or wouldn't serve. But I will tell you this, and I'll tell you why. This is what I've learned. If let's say our Alabama senators, right? Let's say it's me and Katie Britt. If we were to sign a pledge to say we're going to be here for 2 terms, but nobody else does, you're going to have a bunch of Mitch McConnells that are in there till they die in office. And it's going to be bad for the state of Alabama, because we're always going to be at the bottom of the rung with how the system currently works, right? With that being said, I would be more than happy to sponsor a bill that says, hey, for Senate, it doesn't matter the amount of terms. I think 2 terms is reasonable. Heck, I would even go 3 terms. Let's just get some amount of terms in there. Let's sponsor a bill for senators to serve a certain amount of terms and congressmen to serve a certain amount of terms. And if everybody would sign that same piece of paper, I would do whatever number they want. If they all would sign one for 1 Senate term, let's do it, because this is not a job that I desire for political elevation. It's a job I desire for service. But it's got to be equal across the board for every state, because it doesn't positively impact Alabama if we have a congressman that says, hey, I only want to be here for 3 terms, and then they just bounce out. And I hate to say it, Gary Palmer, that's what he said. He said, I said something, Proverbs 19:2, zeal without knowledge causes you to miss the mark. He said, I said something that sounded good at the front end, but I didn't realize how it would negatively impact Alabama on the back end. So that's what we have to understand as the voter as well. We have to educate ourselves on that. If everybody would do it across the board, and let's knock it out. Let's do 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, whatever it is. But if everybody's not doing it across the board, leverage your politicians, leverage a guy like me. Hey, we need term limits. We 100% need term limits. I can tell you right now, my wife, she probably don't want me to stay up there longer than 1 term. I mean, the Senate term, 6 years. That's a long time, y'all. 6 years is a long time. So anyway, that's my answer.
In Montgomery, in the state Senate, I was one of the few that would sign on to term limit bills. There was like a thing every year. We dropped a term limit bill, and me and 2 or 3 others were always one on. I have what I call the baseball rule, 3 and out. So
that's not a bad rule.
No, it's not. All right, next card. Jared, what measures will you take to ensure transparency and accountability in government?
Well, that's good. I don't know what measures a senator can take other than just getting in front of y'all and saying, hey, this is what we're doing, or this is what I've done. I would say that there's a fine line. Somebody, my campaign manager back there listening to me, is going to get mad when I say this, right? We got the Epstein thing going on right now, and everybody's like, oh, the government's not transparent with it. There's a fine line between things that you have to be transparent with and things that you can't be transparent with. And I will go ahead and tell you this, and some of the stuff is already starting to come out. There's a reason that they didn't release any of the Epstein stuff, because there's more. It's like the old Paul Harvey thing I used to listen to with my granddaddy when we go to Trade Day up in Collinsville, Alabama. When I was a kid, we'd be right back here. And that's the rest of the story, right? Well, there's still the rest of the story to be told. There's more there, and you can't release certain stuff. Now, why do people have, big mouths, and maybe they say, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to release this? I don't know, all right? Each individual, everybody messes up. But what I do know is that Transparency in government is good unless it negatively impacts the justice that government is required to serve on behalf of the king, on behalf of we the people. So I guess that's a politician's way of answering that question. I'm all for transparency, but as long as it doesn't negatively impact the justice that our government is trying to serve. I mean, it'd be transparent to say, yeah, we're flying these planes over to Iran to drop a bomb on them because they got a nuke. But it would be really stupid to say that, right? And I guess that's what I'm getting at, making sure that our transparency doesn't negatively impact our ability to do the jobs that government should be doing.
All right. Maybe an easier question, more personal. Was it worth it becoming a Navy SEAL?
It was, yeah. I mean, it's just that straightforward and simple. It was worth it becoming a Navy SEAL. Even my wife, she misses the community. We're still tied to the community. It was worth it.
All right. Speaking of which, though, let me ask you this. This is not one of the cards. Just said solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3. Hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday. So, yeah, indeed. And I'm in Dipper number 2 in hour number 3. So I'm doing this one on Trump World. And I introduced it just earlier to talk about the fact that President Trump has not just come on board to make America great again by isolating us, by basically build the wall and don't talk to anybody. No, he's making America great again on the world stage. He knows that this is like, if you're the biggest country in the world with the largest GDP and the greatest manufacturing base and the most natural resources and the greatest people in the world, you know what? Maybe you've got influence on the world stage and it's time to use it. And it's exactly what he's doing. Well, it was announced yesterday that Trump went to Scotland. And I remember hearing he was going to Scotland and playing some golf. A little more than that. He went to Scotland and he wound up announcing while he was there in a joint press conference with Ursula von der Leyen, who is the head of the European Union. He announced that we are just entering into the framework for perhaps the largest trade deal in the history of the United States. The European Union is going to basically give us unprecedented levels of market access. They're leveling the tariffs. Now, remember at one point, Trump said 30%. Everybody's like, oh my God, 30%. And then he said, you know what? If you're not going to negotiate, it's 50%. Well, guess what? First thing they did, the EU has agreed to an across the board 15% tariff rate. 15. That's still a win for us. We've actually made like a $54 billion profit on tariffs so far. The economy is responding well to tariffs.
I think it's a lot more than that. I
Is
think
it more than 54 billion?
They released a number today. It was over 100 billion total so far in tariff revenue. Yeah.
Well, blow me down.
I think June was a record for tariff revenue. I can look up the exact number.
Yeah, see if you can find it, man. I'd like to hear that I'm wrong on that.
So
that's great.
It says that in June, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said that he thinks we can collect up to 300 billion this year. I'm trying to find the number of so far. 150 billion.
150 billion so far this year.
Since implementing the policy, we have gotten 150 billion dollars in tariffs.
Oof.
And it says in July alone, the United States hit a new milestone with 28 billion collected. So 28 billion collected just in July.
Woof. Okay. Wow. And July's not even over.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay. I stand corrected gleefully. How about that? Here's what else, though. That 15% tariff with the European Union, keep in mind, that's the European Union. We already had the very first trade deal that was signed was with Great Britain. And that was a couple of months ago. I mean, right out the gate, excited to do it. Great Britain, long-time ally. So Great Britain was already in place. Remember, Great Britain actually, they had Brexit. So they separated from the EU. So it's a separate trade deal with Great Britain. Now we have the EU. That's all of Europe. So the European Union has now entered into a trade deal, 15% tariff rate, but it's so much bigger than that. This is not about averting a trade war. This is about like engineering the largest investment in modern history. This is an epic moment where the European Union is actually agreeing, some say, to upwards of $1.4 trillion over the next 3 years of investment by EU countries into the United States. Good Lord. $750 billion of that is in American energy. They're going to start buying our oil, buying our gas. $600 billion in additional U.S. investments. I mean, these are like staggering numbers, y'all. This is huge. This is a big, big deal. but it's also way higher than anything we've ever seen before. And the strategic value of this is part of the master stroke, is part of the statesmanship, if you will, because they went ahead and they also exempted certain sectors of this from tariffs: aircraft and components, semiconductors, critical chemicals, and some agricultural products. And these are not random selections. What they did was they picked key supply chains and they gave them an opportunity to grow and to flourish tariff-free. This is, I mean, we got a guaranteed customer for American energy exports. We got like a massive European event. This comes on the heels, by the way, of just recently, he did a massive trade deal with Japan. We thought Japan was big. Japan was like 550 billion in investment. Now look at this. All I'm saying is we are watching right now. Trump world is really something to behold.
Can I just say too,
Yeah.
I think this was a great tactic on his end. It was genius. He's in their countries and yet he's still hosting them. Did you notice that? Somebody pointed out. So he goes to Scotland, and instead of going to, Scotland's, buildings or whatever, he had them come to his property. So that is such a power move. I'm going to go to your country and I'm going to host you like that. That, I don't know. It may seem little.
And by the way, I'm going to play some golf.
Yeah, and I'm going to play some golf too. That may seem, little, but I think stuff like that shows how he's been so successful in not only the private sector, but it's just, I don't know. I'll go to your country, you come to me, and I'll host you.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that's very cool. So the Trump juggernaut, I got a piece here from the Daily Caller, says the Trump juggernaut is steamrolling the naysayers who had spent months predicting its failure. Yes. I mean, how many times were we hearing on the liberal left-leaning media that, this is going to cause a recession. Oh, it's going to be horrible. You're going to watch like prices go through the roof. We're not going to be able to afford milk and bread, and eggs are going to be back again. Nope. We are looking at what one ambassador told the Financial Times was a clear Trump juggernaut that steamrolled the EU, but it worked out exactly where our pain threshold is. And oh, by the way, the naysayers now are having no choice but to go, it's working. They don't want to, but they are. The New York Times published a piece 7 days before the new trade deal was even announced, claiming that Trump's tariff threats were bolstering the EU's public trust, helping the bloc to make new friends. In other words, he's pushing them away from us. It's going to be bad. No, it didn't actually work out that way. Ursula von der Leyen sat there and shook hands and looked very respectful and nice. They had a great talk. Trump was very complimentary. And then, oh, by the way, they got a trade deal. And we came out smelling like a rose, baby. Smelling like a rose. But then you got the New York Times talking about President Trump's pledge to make America great again appears to be having an unexpected side effect, bringing Europeans together again. Yeah, to deal with us. How you like it now? It went on to say Europe is getting fed up with Donald Trump's trade threats. Apparently it worked. These people, I tell you what, man, they can't get out of their own way. French member of parliament, president of the National Rally Party, Marine Le Pen, referred to it all as a stinging failure by the EU. We have caved to Trump. I used to like Marine Le Pen, but she's apparently mad because, I don't know, Trump got a deal. Here's the thing. Liz Peek did a piece on Fox News. And she says it right here. She said Trump's major trade wins could be rocket fuel to U.S. economy. Rocket fuel to the U.S. And I hope so. I really do. Says the initial rollout of his tariff program in April was rather clumsy. The subsequent negotiation of trade deals, though, has been masterful. Much remains to be fully fleshed out for agreements that concluded in weeks as opposed to the more customary years. Oh, yeah, by the way, keep that in mind. How long has Trump been back in office? 5 months. 5.5. He has accomplished more in the trade deal environment, in international trade. His administration has accomplished more in 5 months than Biden even thought about doing in the 4 years he was there. Okay, let me rephrase that. I'm not sure Biden thought about doing much of anything, but his people thought about doing.
More than the auto pen thought about doing.
The auto pen was thinking hard,
Mm-hmm.
and it couldn't even come up with this stuff. All that to say, The United States is the world's biggest economy at $29 trillion. China and the EU come next at roughly $19 trillion. The U.S. leads in sheer size and also in the magnitude of our consumer market at 70% of GDP or $20 trillion. By comparison, Chinese consumer accounts for only 40% of that country's GDP. So what that's saying is we are a consumer environment. We are willing and ready to also, oh, by the way, use our wealth on the world stage. Every country on earth, says Liz Peek, wants to export to the U.S. Consequently, our country has clout, and the president is determined to use it. He's removing tariffs that other countries have imposed on American-made goods coming into their countries. He's also fighting non-tariff barriers, such as illegal government subsidies, currency manipulation, arcane regulations. He's doing all these things, and it's like the libs are standing by going, can't keep up. Can't it, by the way, it had to kill. So CNN said this, townhall.com, Dateline 2 days ago. No, Dateline yesterday. President Trump flew to Scotland for a multi-day trip, played some golf, and emerged with a significant trade deal. And they're not happy about it. But the CNN guy, he said there's no hiding the fact the EU is, I'm sorry, this is the ambassador talking. The EU guy, the guy from CNN said he's been issuing many threats of tariffs, but they clearly have been working. Just probably had to just like cause him gut pain when he said it, just serious gut pain. But Bill Maher, who, by the way, on the one hand irritates the crap out of me, but on the other side, I've developed a grudging respect for Bill Maher on HBO. I mean, the man's got a foul mouth, but he's an avowed liberal, but he has become what I would call a speaker of truth to power, even when the people are his own.
He's intellectually honest.
Thank you. That's good. He's intellectually honest. That's a great way of putting it. All right, you take the segment. But he did. He actually said the other day, he said, I was along with other people saying at the beginning, oh, by the 4th of July, the economy was going to be tanked. This is Bill Maher talking. He said, it's kind of like, well, that seems right to me, but it didn't happen. It could happen, but I'm just saying it's our reality. The truth is, he said, I don't know what his strategy is, but look, the stock market's at record highs. I know not everybody lives by the stock market, but I also drive around and I don't see a country in depression at all. I see people out there just living their lives. And I would have thought, I got to own it. He says the tariffs were going to sink the economy by this time, and they didn't. They're coming around. They're coming around. There's more on Trump world. Things are happening. I'll tell you about it after the break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. I can think of Ryan Zinke, Tim Sheehy, Dan Crenshaw. I know I'm forgetting somebody else that was a team guy.
Eli Crane, Derek Van Orden, Morgan Luttrell.
There's an entire SEAL team.
Buddy of mine, I won't say his name because I don't know if he's going to announce yet, but he's in Kentucky. They're looking to have him run against some guy in Kentucky, the Massey fellow in Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a team guy looking at that. So
how many of them do you know that are currently serving now, and have you talked to them?
I've talked to all of them, and I know all of them. Yeah. So, yep.
Any of them tell you, don't do it?
No, they don't. I mean, they get it, they get it. They just say LLTB, bro. Y'all are RTLW. Yeah, or Ranger Lead the Way, RLTW. We're LLTB, long live the brotherhood. That's the SEAL team, so that's all they say. LLTB, bro.
It's gonna be a SEAL team mafia up there in DC. I can tell you right now.
Maybe we'll get to really kill somebody that's bad. That's bad. That's bad. A bad person.
That was a line from an Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, that's
movie.
right.
But they were all bad.
True lies. True lies.
Yeah, true lies. This is all right. Dance on this one for a minute. All right. Do you believe the growing Muslim influence in America is a problem? If so, is there anything that can be done under constitutional boundaries? Come to a church, they ask the questions.
No, I mean that's a good question. Is the growing Muslim problem? Look at Michigan. I mean, y'all can look up the videos, and I would ask you to tell me what you think. I would say what I've seen in Dearborn, Michigan is a problem. Is it a problem here in Birmingham, Alabama? Well, I know a guy that was that I was actually helping look for not too long, a couple years ago now, that was killed by a Muslim because that guy was a Christian, and he killed him because he was a Muslim. And that could be one-off, that could be just one-off guy in Birmingham. I don't know, but I say look at it and make that decision for yourself. My estimation is not nationwide, but in quite a few parts of this nation, it is starting to become a problem. Yes, but I wouldn't say nationally. As far as the Constitution is concerned, I don't know if there's anything that the U.S. Constitution can. I don't know how that can positively impact that, unless, of course, they're raining on somebody else's right to life, liberty, and we say pursuit of happiness. John Locke said life, liberty, and property. But so if they rain on somebody else's right to life, liberty, and property, or life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, I think then we could deal with it at a federal level. I think it's more local. We talking about it earlier, with local politics. I think that's the most important place to positively impact those sort of negative things that we're seeing in some of these areas around the nation.
Show them Jesus. That's it.
That is, and
Absolutely.
That is something that going all the way back to the Civil War. That's something that Robert E. Lee said. Robert E. Lee was a Christian man, and he didn't have slaves. And his wife got in trouble for teaching slaves how to read. Right? He didn't believe it, but he believed that it was a better place for them to be if they could hear the gospel of Christ. That's what he said. Now, we know we fought a war over it. We know a lot of issues come up. I'm not saying that slavery is a good thing. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I'm saying is, as a Christian man, that's what he leaned on when it, dealt with slavery. I think we should lean on the same thing when it deals with, especially extreme Islam or the Muslim religion growing at a mass rate here in the U.S. It gives us the opportunity to share our faith with them, because it's not me that changes your heart and your mind. It's the Holy Spirit. It's Jesus Christ that changes you, and he can change them. He's changing Muslims all over the world. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm about to say, how much time do we have? So that's what I was going to do, was 1 or 2, depending on how long it takes. Okay, great. Well, we're sitting in a church right now that was not afraid to have a political discussion. And you've already commented on it several times. I'm going to ask you one more question because it was handed to me on the card. There's been a recent Supreme Court ruling that they very likely would never lose a 501c3 status for that. But here's the question for you. Do you think churches, and it's phrased this way, do you think churches will start giving guidance on candidates or endorsing them? Do you think that will happen? And I'm going to go ahead and change it slightly and say, do you think that's advisable? Your thoughts?
I'm gonna upset somebody else again when I say this.
We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so wrapping up this segment on Trump world. It is indeed Trump world. So I loved the line. I just threw the story in the trash, but I know what it said. Basically, Trump went up to Scotland. He played some golf, came back with a trade agreement. While he was there, he also stopped a war. What? Okay. Well, so apparently... is it Cambodia and Thailand, I believe? Cambodia and Thailand? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, Cambodia and Thailand were really escalating in conflict on the border to the point that there was serious concern on the international stage that Cambodia and Thailand were about to go to war. I don't know to what level. All I know is apparently Trump contacted the leaders of both countries and said there will be no trade agreement with us whatsoever unless you stop fighting first. And they declared a ceasefire and stopped. Just like that. Listen, that's what happens when leadership exerts itself on the world stage for good. People look at it and go, oh, I'll respond to that. So, I mean, how cool is that? Here's another piece. I love this. I get tired of it too. I get tired of the kabuki. Oh, here it is. I had a story on it. Let me back up. I got a piece from Red State. Cambodia and Thailand agree to a ceasefire less than 24 hours after Trump says no deals until the fighting ends. There you go. So it's another Monday, meaning another Monday after another credible week of winning for President Donald Trump, says Red State. And Trump's latest win comes as a result of the president telling the prime ministers of Cambodia and Thailand he will not negotiate trade deals with either country unless they end their deadly border war. He said, this is on Truth Social. Said trade talks are a no-go until such time as the fighting stops, all caps. And then on Sunday, he said in an interview, I called the prime minister of each one. I said, we're not going to make a trade deal. They should settle the war. A lot of people are being killed. He said, I think by the time I got off, they wanted to settle. He says, well, what do you know? The brief border war, one of the countless conflicts between the two countries over the last 500 years, ended when both sides agreed to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire less than 24 hours after Trump issued his threat. So, I mean, that's just nothing but, that's just classic Trump. You know, I don't think Biden could get something done in a week. Trump just gets things done by the minute. And I coined this phrase, and I haven't used it yet. I've been saving it for the right moment. Now it's time. You ready? The world right now is moving at the speed of Trump. That's where we are. The world right now is moving at the speed of Trump. You got Cambodia and Thailand. They're fighting one day. He gives them a call and says, no trade deal. Let's just stop fighting. 24 hours later, they stop. Meanwhile, at the same time, he's playing golf on his own golf course in Scotland and then pausing from that to meet with leaders from the European Union and signing a massive trade agreement. Oh, by the way, he just finished a massive trade agreement with Japan. Oh, by the way, he already signed one with Great Britain. Oh, by the way, we got one with Vietnam. Oh, by the way, there's more coming. Listen, the world right now is moving at the speed of Trump, and it's amazing to watch, y'all. Absolutely amazing to watch. One of the things he also did this past weekend was he gave Russia a new deadline. He said, you know, I gave you 50 days. I'm paraphrasing slightly. He said, I gave 50 days for Putin to come to the table and do good faith negotiations. And he basically said, I don't think he's going to do it. He said, I gave him time to get to but I think I already know the answer of what's going to happen. So I'm not doing 50 days. He said 10 or 12 days from now, if we don't see any progress being made, there's going to be severe tariffs on Russia. Listen, there are people who believe in analyzing Russia's position right now that they are in a tenuous position. And even Putin himself, his presidency is in a tenuous position. Massive sanctions on the Russian economy could wind up having a crippling effect on that nation. And I guarantee you right now, Putin's trying to figure out what he's going to do. Trying to figure out, can I get out of it? Can I bluff my way? Can I do something? Probably not. Trump said he's sick of it. Every time I talk to him, he's a nice guy. He's very respectful. We have a good conversation. The next day, people are dying. And he does not, by the way, Putin is not launching on military strikes on hardened military targets. He dropped a missile on a nursing home the other day. He dropped them on hospitals. He's bombing civilian centers. It's like war crime stuff. And then last thing I'll tell you this, apparently France wants to recognize Palestine as a state. Trump just went ahead and said, Daily Wire has a story. We're boycotting the United Nations conference promoting the two-state solution. It's a publicity stunt. It's an insult, and we're not going. I see the two-state solution falling apart as we speak. What do you think?
If it ever was going to begin with.
If it ever was in the first place. That's right. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Tons of text messages. I'll get them when we come back. Y'all stay tuned.
Cut the live stream.
Yeah, cut the live stream. I sat across from a black pastor in a black church when I was running for Jefferson County Sheriff.
Right.
And down in Jefferson County, Alabama in 2022. My only involvement in politics, that's what kept me involved here because I almost beat the incumbent Democrat. I lost by like 1.5 points. And that's what kept me at the forefront of even being considered or asked to do what I'm doing now. That man sat across from me, pastor of a large church. He said, son, you're a Navy SEAL, right? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, then you know what mercenaries are. I said, yes, sir, I do. And he said, we're the mercenaries of the political movement here in Jefferson County. Talking about black churches, they endorse them. He told me, he said, if you give me $50,000, I'll make sure that our congregation gets out and votes for you. We'll run buses. I said, I should have recorded the whole conversation. I sat there and I said, well, sir, why don't you ask God who to vote for? And do what he says. It don't matter how much or how little I give you, you do what he says. And I walked out. It's been done for years. That's the first thing I would say. It's been done for years. Oftentimes, though, we have let our Christianity become a vice. And what did I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. Well, Churchill said, I'll say what Churchill said. You can't negotiate with a tiger when your head's in its mouth. And I would say that's our biggest problem with churches, with growing up with a dad that's a pastor and seeing the ivory tower of the evangelical church. We think we can negotiate with a tiger when our head's in its mouth. You can't do it. You have to realize that I've either got to kill this tiger or I've at least got to get my head out of its mouth. And I'm hoping that, especially what I'm hearing here tonight and seeing churches move that way, that we realize that we have to present politics from the pulpit. On the other side, politicians, you have to present your faith from politics or in your position as a politician. It's important. Jesus says, if you don't declare me before men, I won't declare you before my Father in heaven. He's already told us that we need to declare him. And it's the most important thing. It's the only thing that's eternal. So to give you encouragement out here, you don't separate politics, religion, and sports like we always have heard. No, all of those things go together. And the reason religion is the most important, and I call it relationship because it's a relationship with Jesus, is because it's the only thing that's eternal. And it should be what guides you in these other things.
Well, you may have just answered the last question already then.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for coming tonight. Now, the last question, I thought it was a great one to end on. What are the core values that guide your decisions and your actions?
Well, yeah, you already heard the first one. This is easy, right? Christ and Christ crucified is what Paul says. Now, does that mean, I was actually speaking to a group of people in Boston, all liberals, mostly Democrats, right? But I was speaking to them in Boston on why I would be an important senator for them in Boston, even though I'm coming out of Alabama. And one of the ladies asked me, she said, hey, you keep talking about this Jesus thing. A lot of them are Jewish, like real Jewish people. So they don't like the Jesus loving stuff. They're not like Messianic Jews. They said, you keep talking about this. What are you going to do if somebody believes something different? I said, ma'am, it's not my job to convince you or to beat you over the head with what I believe. It's only my job to tell you. Paul says, how would they ever hear if a preacher doesn't preach? So that would be the first thing that drives me, is to make sure that I share the gospel with whoever I come in contact with. Your ministry, if you're a Christian, is to share the gospel unashamedly with everybody you come in contact with, no matter where you are or what you're doing. No matter if you're a radio show host, doesn't matter if you're in politics, doesn't matter if you're working with an organization like Moms for Liberty, dealing with school board and libraries, doesn't matter if you are working at the gas station down the road. That's your ministry. That's first thing. So that's the first fundamental pillar of who Jared Hudson is. That's my keystone. That's my base. That's my foundation. The next is my family, my wife and my girls. I had a young lady in Mountain Brook at a little event we were doing ask, she said, how do we know? It sounds good to say you want to take our issues to DC and not bring DC issues back here. And it's easy for me to say that. How do we know that you're not going to bring DC issues back here and you're not just going to go up there and do what everybody else does? And
Ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning, and big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. And then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web. Live streaming the show, live streaming, video and all, live streaming the show every single day on places like Rumble and X and Facebook and YouTube. And by the way, our website, rightsidemedia.org. Tons of you. And then we can also see, by the way, that a bunch of you guys podcast the show after the fact. Thank you, all of you, no matter where you get this show, just know this: we see that you're there, and we appreciate that you're there. You're the reason why we're here. So thank you very much for being a part of our lives. Let me jump on some text messaging because 833-687-4448, that's 833-68-RIGHT, is indeed the text line. And a bunch of y'all, good Lord, wow, a bunch of y'all are in the mix. Let me get a few of these. Andrew from Athens texted in. He said, okay. He said, hey, you didn't mention Rightside Speedos in your marketplace. Well, that's because we don't sell those, Andrew. That's only at your store. Just saying. Mike from Coxie, Alabama says, Colonel Phil, how would you score Trump on his Make America Great Again agenda? Right now, I think the man is scoring a 9 at the least, maybe upwards of a 10. So let's go ahead and cut the middle and say 9.5. I mean, he's think about it. The economy's doing better. The military's doing better. The illegal immigration thing is absolutely doing stellar things. The energy sector is coming back up. International trade is like unbelievable right now. We actually saw a surplus of revenue. That's what it was. That's where a surplus of revenue coming in from trade tariffs that people said were going to crash the economy. It's hard to find a place where he's really like hosing things. I can't find one. If there's anybody frustrated with anything, it's the people that can't get past the Epstein files. Not that I don't think that's a big deal, but you know what? There's a whole lot of stuff happening right now. And those of y'all that are single issue voters, because we just need to see the files. Shut up. Look at your economy right now. Look at your military. Look at all the rest of it. Let's work on that too. Guess what? We can chew gum and walk at the same time. It is possible to be more than a single issue voter. So I think it's a 9.5. Let's go ahead and say it. Joe in Tennessee. President Trump is 79 as of June 14th of 2025. Oh, he just turned 79? God, I thought he was 78 still. Not that that's young.
Oh, it's just 79.
Yeah, he's actually okay. I thought he was only 78. 79 years old playing golf. I want to be like that when I grow old.
Yeah, I do as well. And also, he's not even drinking water, nothing but Diet Coke and McDonald's. So.
But you know what? The man is also alcohol free. You know that?
He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always been alcohol free.
Always been alcohol free, which is amazing when you consider his social lifestyle. Yeah, exactly. Nofre from Lexington says Trump forcing Democrats to hate great things for America. It's only 6 months in, baby. Go Trump, go. Perfect. Ken from Harvest sent me a link, and I can't. Oh, is it did you see it?
Yeah, it's a coffee mug hand grenade.
Is it? Can I open it? I'm online right now. What do you got? Is it
It's just a coffee mug hand grenade with a little pin on it. Said here that the Truth Grenade logo would look great on this.
It would. I like this ceramic coffee mug. Does it have a lid you lift off the top?
It does. Yeah.
I am intrigued by this. Okay, would you please cut and paste that and send it to Natalie? Take a look at it. Let's see if we can get them customized. I mean, if we can't get them customized, it's a different story. But if we can get them customized, we may be onto something. Thank you for that, Ken. In fact, we've looked for them before and did not see that one. Jeff from Indiana is just making his way through Nashville. He got held up in traffic earlier, so hopefully we'll hear from him in a little while. Jeremy from Madison says Trump should write a book and entitle it "The Art of the Presidency." You know what? He's going to have a memoir at some point. You know he is. I'd say The Art of the Presidency is not a bad one. David, my thing jumped. Hang on a second. David from Huntsville says Democrats keep saying that Trump is taco Trump, always chickens out. Like Trump always chickens out. Trump never expected these countries to pay his initial high tariffs. They were only to get them to negotiation table. But I don't think the Democrats believe that Americans are smart enough to see that. Point well taken, David. Good job. JT Lacey Springs. How will tariffs be utilized? Added to the general fund? Put toward the national debt? I don't know that. I'm pretty sure it's being added to the general fund, but there is talk. JP hit his button. I know you did. There's talk.
Trump has said many times that he wants this to go to the national debt. I will say this though, like it's not going to be much if we keep government spending at the way it is. You know, I feel like it's going to be like, hey Phil, here's $5 out of you. By the way, can I borrow $10, please? Yeah, it's not going to make a difference. Yeah. So, and if we pass another CR this September, I'm going to flip my lid because it's going to be like, oh, great. All that means nothing because we just keep spending at outrageous levels.
Yeah, they need to get back to regular order business. They absolutely do. If
So,
they
yes.
don't, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's intended to be going to the debt, but yeah, I just wish we would do cutting spend. We don't have a revenue problem. We got a spending problem. So, I mean, the tariff revenue doesn't hurt by any means, but it's not the root of the problem.
And the GDP is 29 trillion. So, we can do this if we can just cut spending.
Yeah.
Jerry from Decatur says, looks like the trade wins, like as in winning, are blowing in our favor. Good as a parachute that opens wide. Enjoy the ride. Airborne. Thank you, Jerry. Knees to the breeze, brother. Brian from Decatur says, now we just need the Fed to cut interest rates. Yes. My gosh. I think Jerome Powell's holding out for spite right now. I mean, it's like he's saying, I can't control much, but I can control this.
Well, apparently he told Trump behind closed doors, like he acknowledged the economy is doing great and congratulated President Trump. So it's not like he's not aware of the state of the economy,
and he's spending billions on his new headquarters.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Good Lord.
3.1 billion total, if you count what he built in 2016. It's crazy.
Shag Nasty the Atheist. Oh, Shag, we haven't heard from you in so long. Shag Nasty the Atheist. There you are. He says, he says all these trade agreements are verbal, nothing on paper, nothing real, but sure, keep gloating as we have the highest deficit ever. So let me ask you this, Shag. If the leader of the EU sits with the leader of the free world and they do a joint press conference where they announce that they have arrived at their framework deal and that their secretaries of state, if you will, are working out the final details. Does that mean it's not really real? I'm pretty sure that the president of the EU and the president of the United States are not going to do a joint presser if this is so notional as to go away. Thanks, Shag. Good try. Matt from Madison says, Captain Kirk, I need more speed, Scotty. Prepare for Trump speed, Captain. Warp factor Trump. I like it. Tim from Madison says, if you could handle the Epstein stuff a little bit better, if you could handle the Epstein,
Trump.
I guess he means, okay, yeah, okay, that's about me. If he can handle the Epstein stuff a little bit better, he would really be a 10 out of 10. I'm not going to deny it. I sort of gave the 9.5 on that basis. Because I think that between that and a few other things that I see in terms of like relational stuff, I look at it and go, I don't know. Tom from Decatur says, my issue is that the corrupt Biden AG, Merrick Garland, hasn't been mentioned any investigations in DC corruption as of yet. That's a good point. And I'll tell you the other one that I haven't heard is Mayorkas. I want to know when Mayorkas is going to face charges for.
Well, I know Trump, he put up a memo to have them start to investigate Mayorkas for deliberately leaving the border open, but that's all I've seen. He's encouraged them to investigate him. So
I think they should. They absolutely should. If they can find these smoking guns that they're finding right now that are years old on the Russia collusion, I want to know if they can find an email where Mayorkas says, whatever you do, don't close the border.
Or just deliberately lying to Congress saying the border is secure.
Yeah, there's that. Jeff from Indiana says, I hate to tell you this, but you are old. Why would you say this to me? What did I do? What brought that on?
I don't know.
I don't either. Okay, Jeff, just so you know, we're about the same age, if I recall. Walt from Citronelle. Oh, Citronelle, really? Walt from Citronelle says construction trade is hurting in the Mobile Bay Area because all of the ICE raids. Glad to see the crackdown on illegals, but I hate how it's hurting our trades. Well, I get it, Walt, but you know what? It's one of those things where we're going to have a little bit of pain to get back to normal order of business. And if we can see our way through this, I really believe it's going to wind up being better.
Force them to hire American. Actually,
yeah. Well, and I agree. We have a shortage in the trades. We do. We spent a lot of years saying you got to go to college. You got to go to college. How about this? Maybe you could get a certificate in welding or carpentry or plumbing, and make an incredible living in the trades. But anyway, Badger from Athens. Last few, and I'll take a break. Badger from Athens says, "What do you think about Trump's niece speaking against him?" When did that happen? Recently? Or is that an old one? He did have a niece that spoke against him quite a while back.
I haven't seen anything new.
I mean, at this point, why do I care? Unless she's saying that he did something, that we should be concerned about. No. John from Huntsville says, JP and Phil, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Well, thank you. trying to get to 50. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go check that out. Thank you, John. Appreciate you letting us know. Shag from Shag Nasty's responding. Shag, it's not working, man. It's not working. Brian from Harvest says, how is Obama possibly protected from treason charges since he's president? I get other crimes, but that doesn't make sense to me. Well, first of all, here's the deal. Under 18 U.S. Code, treason has an actual definition that requires collusion with a foreign government, generally speaking. So treason may not be there, but sedition can. Sedition is subverting the ability of the U.S. government to operate. And I paraphrased greatly, but that's roughly it. So the question is, can he be found guilty of subversive behavior, of subversive conduct? Did he try to undermine the office of the presidency? I think all things are trending to yes, he did. Will he face jail time? Probably not. But I do believe that there should be some accountability, and we're likely going to see it. Well, I just ran through that. That was like a one soliloquy after another. But hey, you guys are great texters. You lead for inspiring questions. We're taking a break right now. Last break of the day. We'll come right back on a Taco Tuesday. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In Washington, D.C. and become one of the political elite? That's a great question. Well, it's because my wife and girls are going to stay here. And that's my next pillar, my next foundation. My heart will be in Gardendale, Alabama. My heart will be with mama and those girls here, rooted in Alabama, because that's where we're raising our family. We don't want to bring them to D.C. So I'll be back and forth Monday through Friday. So that's my second pillar. My third pillar is we the people. Now, I know that sounds like it's like, oh, well, no, you're running to support we the people. It's got to be God first, and then it's got to be my family second. Because I love you, Phil, but if I got to choose between you and one of my little girls, I'm choosing one of my little girls every day of the week, right? And you wouldn't be upset about that, because it'd be the same thing if it was me versus one of your grandkids. That's the way it works. It's God, then family, then finally the people that I'm elected to serve. God has my heart. My family has my heart. This is the foundation I'm built on. The final pillar of this foundation is the state and the nation that I'm called to serve. We the people, who's saying we trust that this man can be the elected representative to take our issues to the power center of the world, to the power center of the nation, to make sure that they're dealt with as effectively as we can possibly deal with them in this great experiment that's been the experiment of the United States of America, and bring it back to positively impact us geopolitically, so all around the world, what we see going on everywhere, to impact our immigration issues that we see affecting us nationally, and then also in the state of Alabama, to impact our economic issues, right? We see that nationally we're taking in $6.5 trillion, we're taking in $4.5 trillion a year, and we're spending $6.5 trillion a year. Hey, let's just stop spending more than we're taking in. We don't need to tax more. We just need to spend less. And then finally, looking at the state, we got a great state that provides a lot right here in Huntsville. We build rockets in Huntsville. We build ships in Mobile. We've got great agriculture all throughout the state. By the way, our agriculture is in like the top 5 across the board. Catfish farming, I didn't even realize was in the top 5 in Alabama. Yeah, catfish farming, timber, peanut crops in South Alabama. If you look at agriculture, we support a lot around this nation. And bringing that back and elevating Alabama, my home, so that my home, my state, the state of Alabama, can continue to elevate the nation. Those are the foundational things that drive me. How can I bring legacy? That final thing, how can I bring legacy to the United States of America, in particular to the state of Alabama? And that's why I think I'm the best choice for U.S. Senator.
I just want to point out, extemporaneous speaking is not an easy thing. And every bit of that was unplanned, off the cuff, from the heart.
That's a super big word. What does that mean?
That means it means you did it without notes, dude. Okay. Friggin' frog, man. All right. I want to close our time. I just like to pray over you for a minute. All right. So let's me and you stand right here in front of God and everybody. Lord Jesus, bless your name. Father, I thank you for Jared. I thank you for his beautiful family. I thank you for his heart for you, that he knows you unabashedly, that he's willing to share that with others. I thank you, Father, for his heart for service. I thank you for his service to our nation in extremis. Father, I thank you for the places he's been, the things he's done, and the fact that he is willing to continue going back. And God, I pray in Jesus' name that you would have your hand of grace and mercy upon him in every way, that you would strengthen him, you'd watch over him, protect his family. Let there be no loss. Let there be no consideration given to the left or to the right. Father, I pray that your path would be well lit for him, that his steps would be well measured, that his mind would be clear, that his purpose would be purposeful. And Father, I pray that this would also be the year of peace for him, and that you would be with him in his way. We give it all to you. We thank you for this church. We thank you for Movement Church, for the ministry they have here. We thank you for those who put this event together. We give you all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Oh, Yellow Dog Mike is back, JP. We got Shag and Yellow Dog Mike all in one day. Yellow Dog Mike says, care to address the Trump diversion of funds for nuclear weapons to retro the big dumb jet for Trump? Does anybody really believe that we are robbing the nuclear stockpile in order to build Trump a nicer jet? There's a thing called money is fungible. It's all over the place. It doesn't work that way. That's not how budgets are. And oh, by the way, the line items can't cross over for something quite like that. So Yellow Dog, look, man, you got to get out of blue sky. All right. Blue sky is wearing you out. Blue sky is not good for your health. Blue sky is a bubble. That's where liberals go to cry and moan. It's a safe room. It's a cry room for liberals. Come on out of there. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says, Phil and JP both get an A++ for their equally perfect performances. Congratulations. That may be the shortest grade. He must be on the run somewhere.
We appreciate it, though. A++.
Equally perfect. Thank you very much, John. We appreciate you. Let me go to the phones right now because he's still on the road, but he's north of Nashville, I believe. What's going on there? Old man truck driver Jeff Rowe.
Well, I'm going through the chicken coop right now. Maybe get me a good chicken dinner.
You know you want pickled eggs and fried fish from a truck stop. You know that's what you eat.
Yes, I know. I had fish today, actually.
It's a good thing nobody rides in that cab with you, man.
You think? It probably is a good thing.
Oh my gosh!
You come out here faster than you came out of that gas test.
Oh, well, today we talked about Trump world and safe streets and the situation happening up there in New York City. All of it. What are your thoughts, brother? What's on your mind?
I'm wanting to go to the Palestine thing and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, France sitting there wanting and saying that they're going to recognize Palestine. The best thing that would ever happen to Palestine is it become a one state. And I don't know, it was originally a refugee camp because for the people that didn't want to assimilate and become, Jewish and live in the Jewish state, basically.
Yeah.
So I think, they should have pushed them out to the sea. And what makes me mad worse than anything is that even though they had the hostages and everything, you don't negotiate with hostages. You act like they're already dead, and you just, because all that does is get more hostages.
Okay.
It's just crazy what they're doing.
I've never heard of anybody saying you don't negotiate with hostages. You don't mean the hostage takers, you mean with hostages.
with hostage takers. I'm sorry.
Okay. Now I'm tracking. I had to make sure that you weren't coining a phrase that I thought was going to be funny, but yeah, I mean the whole thing. Listen, and I appreciate the fact that President Trump has kind of laid it down real low where the baby goats can get to it. He said, "Y'all are having a conference to talk about a two-state solution. Guess what? We're not coming. This is all political theater." And he said, "Boom, we're out of here." Meanwhile, you got, I think it's France. Macron said, "We are going to recognize Palestine as a state." Well, okay, good luck with that. But I don't think the world's going to get on board.
Yeah, it's they basically, with doing what they've done, and they've showed over the so many years that they are just, anybody who's living on your border that wants to kill you, and this is the general population. I mean, you can call them hot, regular citizens or whatever, but they polled them and everything, and the overwhelming majority feel the same way that Hamas does, because that's why they got Hamas in there. They all align, just like the Democrats. They're all one mind, one mindset. They're all for Sleepy Joe, even for the ones who didn't vote for Trump and everything.
Well, I tell you what, too, people are going to have to start looking when it comes back to that Palestine question. They're going to start looking at the history of the Palestinian people, because first of all, Israel was there first, and then you got to also look at the modern history of the Palestinian people, because there's a reason why Egypt built a wall on the southern side of Gaza. They don't want them. We have had more. Jordan does not want them. And it's because everywhere they go, they create unrest. And I believe it was the Crown Prince of Jordan they assassinated. The Palestinian people did. I mean, it's like one thing after another. Everywhere they go, they leave terror in their wake. And so everybody said, "Fine, get out of here. We don't want you in our country," and basically kicked them out.
Yeah, and what's really really good is that all these Arab countries, support the Palestinians. Oh yeah, because they're against the Jews. But none of them, like you say, will take them in.
Yeah.
We're all for Palestinians, but you want to come in? No, you're not coming in our country. So
yeah,
it's all a false narrative, that they're putting out there. And Palestinians have basically been indoctrinated into what they are, because that's what they've been taught all their lives, and it's just crazy. They're going to have somebody come in and basically re-educate them, the young ones anyway.
Yep.
Because it's just going to stay this way until eternity if they keep going the way they are.
It is, and it's going to take an entire generation to grow out of the victim mentality they live in. And they've been subjugated by their own leadership, and they've been put in this position by their own leadership, and then they vote in Hamas because they're pretty much told they have to. And now look what they're getting, and it's awful. But listen, brother, the music's about to play. But where are you right now on the road? Are you north of Nashville?
I am at Franklin, Kentucky. So I am headed down the road.
All right. Well, be safe on the road. We'll talk to you tomorrow. All right.
Okay. You have a good one, Phil.
See you, man. All right, you guys. I say it all the time, but it is true. There are more of us than there are of them. Oh, by the way, God is still on his throne. And yeah, absolutely stay in the fight. We'll see you guys tomorrow.